In just over a week, we'll have a new Prime Minister. But as we enter the final 7 days of campaigning for the Tory leadership, have Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak done enough to win the top job? Well, one of them has.
One of them will get it anyway. Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Sunday, the 28th of August. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
Of course, we're live across the whole of the UK. We're on your TV, your radio, online, wherever you are, whatever you're up to today, you can take us with you.
So here are the top stories you need to know about today. The last full week of campaigning to persuade the Tory faithful that they are to be the next person crowned Prime Minister. Should we expect any last-minute pledges?
Well, it is reported today Liz Truss is considering a 5% VAT cut to help rising bills. Is this potential pledge something that you would welcome? Is it a sensible way out of the cost of living crisis? Let us know what you think. GBViews at gbnews.uk.
The most powerful space telescope, the James Webb, has picked up some new images of a planet beyond our solar system.
And gladiators, are you ready? Everyone on their marks and get ready for a brand new series of the popular game show from the 90s. And we're going to be talking to former gladiator Wolf.
I think we're also going to be talking to Rhino.
Rhino as well, yeah.
Yeah. Does it get you nostalgic? It was a wonderful show, I think. As ever, do join in any of our discussions by emailing gbviews at gbnews.uk.
I'm ever so slightly worried about talking to Wolf.
Why?
Because A, he always scared me.
He is scary.
But also because he's now 69.
Wow,
which makes me then feel very old.
Well, it makes you feel old. I should think it makes him feel old.
Yeah, well, yeah. Do you know what I mean? If Wolf, Gladiator, is nearly 70.
Well, all of the gladiators will be pushing it a bit, won't they? Because, it was good 20 years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Oh, it was brilliant. Anyway, we'll get all nostalgic about that a bit later on in the programme this morning.
Yeah, but our main news, and we are into the final week, thank heavens, of campaigning in the Conservative leadership contest as Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss battle it out for the last remaining votes. But which one has done enough?
Well, both candidates have made plenty of promises to entice voters, but we are fast approaching now the time when they'll have to deliver them. So, can we expect any last-minute pledges that will just hopefully get those last few votes in? Who knows?
Well, the Sunday Telegraph says Liz Truss is considering a 5% cut to help with VAT, to help with rising fuel bills.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. We've noted that over the last few days, it's all been about what Liz Truss is saying. Where's Rishi? In today's newspapers. Doesn't seem to be there. Has he given up? Don't know. Here to discuss all this with us is political journalist David Wooding. Morning.
Good morning.
Do you think... Where is Rishi?
Well, Rishi is busy going around the country. This final lap of the leadership race has split into two distinct campaigns. Liz Truss is busy telling us what she's going to do to win over the public ahead of an election in 2 years' time. Also trying to get MPs on side with her, because don't forget, Rishi Sunak was more popular among the parliamentary party than Liz Truss. So that's why you're seeing those last-minute defections. On the other hand, Rishi Sunak knows that he's behind among the voters, and he's trying to sweep up those last-minute votes and is touring the country trying to get every little vote he can. That's his only hope of getting into number 10.
But, I mean, that in itself is interesting, isn't it? Because it means Liz Truss is already trying to garner public support, which is ultimately what matters if they're going to win the next general election.
Yes, and I did have some fears for Liz Truss that she's given so many promises and pledges in order to win the party crown and the keys to number 10. Will she have anything left to give away in 2 years' time?
It's interesting because when we did our poll, when was it, Friday morning?
Friday morning, yes.
Friday morning. And when we were asking people, what is the word that most springs to mind when you think of Liz Truss? The word that came up top was untrustworthy. And you can only presume that's because she appears to have flip-flopped and changed her mind about things. So perhaps it isn't all sewn up.
Well, that was a thing which some of the MPs who didn't back Liz Truss were saying to me in the earlier months. Well, she'll be found out during a leadership campaign. She'll drop a gaffe, and that was the one thing I think Rishi Sunak was pinning his hopes on, was that she would implode. Now, there was one moment where she made this pledge to have regional pay boards, which would have meant massive pay cuts for teachers, police officers and other public servants. But she made a very swift U-turn on that, which saved her skin in many ways.
Well, she's also U-turned on the idea of handouts, what she calls handouts, doesn't she? She said there will be no handouts, and already she's thinking of an acceptable way to do it.
Well, realistically, she has to do some handouts. And this VAT cut today, that will cost £3.2 billion, but it will knock £1,300 off the average outgoings for a house, an average household in Britain.
So, I mean, what's she proposing? Is it cut off VAT on everything, or cut on VAT on fuel? Or
Well, what it seems to be, well, there was a talk of a five percentage point cut on fuel, but now the word is it's going to be between 2.5% and 5% across the board. So that would cut everything from everything you buy. So
and it would be fast, wouldn't it?
It would be fast, and it would hit everybody's pockets immediately.
Yeah, I mean, she's still got a lot of work to do. I mean, on the basis that she walks into number 10, which we're expecting now, I mean, she's got to hit the ground running on this, hasn't she? There's no time to waste, because if she takes her time over anything to do with the cost of living crisis, she's going to be absolutely hung, drawn and quartered.
Well, there are multiple problems facing the next Prime Minister. We've got the war in Ukraine, we've got the unions are all restless, we have rail strikes and so forth. We've also got cost of living rocketing, energy, not only the energy price crisis, the cost of energy, it's the supply of energy, which is a big problem. All these things have got to be fixed, and these are things which should have been fixed decades ago. So not only has she got to look on the long term, but she's got to get some very quick hits. Don't forget there's also the migration crisis. There's all these issues which nobody's been able to deal with, and they've got to, she's got to find some results very quickly.
Is she tough enough to do that? I mean, she comes across as being quite tough in many ways.
Yes, I mean, some of the older hands in Westminster have told me that they remember Margaret Thatcher coming in, and she was a screechy woman with a cardigan on, and they made her over. She lowered her voice, and she showed she had a lot of mettle in her. And like her or loathe her, she won 3 elections and tackled some of the problems, inflation being one of them, which we now face. And there was a war going on very soon.
It does make you wonder who on earth would want to be Prime Minister at the moment. You've just laid out all of the problems that need solutions, and they need it fast, because there will be an election as well to face. So, I mean, do you have to be breathtakingly arrogant to be Prime Minister?
Well, poison chalice doesn't begin to cover it. And in fact, what you say, Anne, is correct. The last few Prime Ministers have had this. I mean, David Cameron...
Maybe you need it.
Well, I don't know.
You've got to have self-belief just to think you can tackle the job.
Well, yes. You cannot choose the moment that you become Prime Minister. Everybody would like a level playing field where things to be easy. Theresa May inherited the Brexit mess as it was then. And then Boris Johnson came in at a time when we had a pandemic, which was unfortunate for him. So Liz Truss is just going to have to take what's on the table and deal with it.
And what will happen to Rishi if he does lose? Where will he go, do you think?
Well, there were suggestions he would serve, and now it looks to me like he won't. I would suggest... if Liz Truss wants to be diplomatic, she'll offer him a job like health, and he'll...
Yeah, but he's been Chancellor.
No, he's not going to want it.
I mean, that's the trouble with the fact that he was Chancellor once. The only promotion, really, from that is either sort of Deputy Prime Minister, which isn't really, is it, or Prime Minister.
Foreign Secretary, perhaps, but I think that job's already...
Do you think he's out the Commons?
Taken. Well, I think he may hang around until the next election and then go. I mean, in his leadership election campaign, he once or twice mentioned California. Not saying he was going to go there, but what a great place it was, and the entrepreneurial spirit he witnessed when he was out
there. And they'd love him there, wouldn't they?
So maybe that's what he'll do.
He should have hung on to that green card, shouldn't he?
Not a bad idea.
No, there you go. Dear. David, good to talk to you. Thank you. Pleasure. OK, let's bring you up to date with what else is going on today. And Jacob Rees-Mogg has unveiled plans to sell off £1.5 billion worth of government offices in central London as civil servants refuse to stop working from home. He's going to publish a strategy that includes selling property assets with staff working in fewer buildings as part of a new network of government hubs. The strategy, set to be published this coming week, comes as Mr Rees-Mogg called for civil service staff numbers to be cut by a fifth.
Meanwhile, at the moment, she's Foreign Secretary. Liz Truss has vowed to bolster Britain's defences if she becomes Prime Minister, including by pushing ahead with renewing Trident. She warns the era of complacency is over, and she's now set out her plan to protect the UK, including a full renewal of the nuclear deterrent, as well as an update to the government's integrated review and strengthened support for intelligence services. At the penultimate Tory leadership hustings, she already pledged to boost defence spending to 3% of GDP by 2030.
Temporary changes that were made to the NHS pension scheme could be extended. The adjustments made allow some retired staff to keep their retirement benefits if they return to the workforce. The measures introduced in March 2020 in response to the pandemic and are set to run until October the 31st. This comes as the NHS Confederation says that the health service will need all the help it can get this winter.
Now, with 1 week to go until we find out who the new Prime Minister is going to be, we thought we'd get the views of you, our viewers and listeners, because this is the People's Channel. As you know, we're very proud of the fact that we love to talk to you and we love to get your views as well. So we're joined now by Denise Woodhams, who joins us now from Bettishanger, I think, near Deal in Kent. Is that how you say it? Bettishanger?
No.
How do you say
Bet's
it?
hanging.
Bettishanger.
Just Bettishanger.
Right. OK. Anyway, it's lovely to see you. A very good morning. So it's only a week to go now. Who's your money on?
Well, I think it's a pretty done deal for Liz Truss, really. I'm hoping so.
In her.
I think she's done everything she can.
But I mean, do you think, Denise, can she deliver on what she's promising an awful lot? Can she deliver on it?
I think she can. She's already on record for saying she's not a micromanager, which means she will put in place people that really know what they're doing. I'm hoping. Not just jobs for the boys, but people that really are qualified in what they do. She's got a wealth of knowledge behind her in the backbenches. She just needs to pull that out and use it.
It's funny how, from time to time, we turn to a woman to be Prime Minister to sort things out, don't we? Do you think she's got what Margaret Thatcher had?
Well, I think she's got some of Margaret Thatcher's attributes. I think she's tough enough. If she sticks to her guns like Margaret Thatcher did, I couldn't stand Margaret Thatcher, I'll be honest. I thought the woman was abysmal because she had no humanity. But I do believe Liz Truss has humanity at the heart of her, and I believe she will be good for the country. Not that we chose it. I would have preferred Boris to stay where he was, but we are where we are.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it is going to, whatever happens moving forward, and there's going to have to be some handouts and plenty of money made available. But all that means that at some point, some pretty unpopular decisions are going to have to be made for the good of the country, as we're always told. I mean, would you? I don't know if you'd say you'd welcome that, but do you accept that that's going to have to happen?
I think everybody's got to accept their part in all of this. It's not the problem is it's not just this country. It's a worldwide phenomena. You've got France that have taken back EDF Energy, for example, back into their national hands. They're getting a 5% increase. We're getting 55% to pay for that. So all the time our energy is being supplied from abroad. We've got no control over that. So that's one of the costs that we can't control and we've got to try and deal with in other ways. But as I said before, if she gets the right people in the right places, gives them all a pair of Nikes, gets them running on the 6th of September, this country can be great again. But we've all got to believe in what's going to happen. We can't listen to the likes of Keir Starmer and the man from Scotland who keeps nip all the time, negative equity all the time. We need some positivity in this country. We need to get behind them.
How are you looking forward and how are you going to cope with the increasing cost of fuel at the moment? How do you see the winter coming?
Well, personally, I retired earlier this year And I'm in quite a reasonable place. I have my house paid for, so I can't lose my house. But the people I feel sorry for are the people that... I've got a husband, so there's two of us. There are people on their own that have one pension coming in, and that's it. Like me, Waspies, they lost the chance to retire at 60 and perhaps gain a little bit of extra money there to put away. But if they're living on their own, they're in a really bad place. And if they've got rents to pay and all these bills, they're just not going to survive. We need to all step up and accept the fact that we've all got to do our bit. But there are people in this country that really need help. And there are an awful lot of people that are coming in with less than 20,000 a year, and it's being taxed. They need to raise the tax threshold to £20,000 to take that net above the poorest people in this country. It would help young people as well. It would give them a foot in the real world.
Why then are you so against Keir Starmer in that, I mean, he hasn't said anything about raising the sort of base level of tax, but he certainly talks about, releasing an awful lot of money by getting money from the energy providers, taxing them more harshly, bigger windfall taxes and what have you. I mean, he's not about taking money back and putting it back into society.
Stephen, the trouble is, he's talking too late. He's had months and months and months, and all he's done is negative, negative, negative. He spent the whole time trying to dish the dirt on Boris and get him out of power. He's now got him out of power, and he's trying to say, we need to do this, we need to do that. But he's not telling us how he would do it. He will not give a straight answer to a straight question. All he keeps saying is, we need a fresh start. Yes, we all know we need a fresh start, but all he's interested in is playground schoolboy bully tactics. He just picks up on their weak spot and keeps going. We need him to sit and listen. And if he doesn't agree with the policy they're putting together, give us an alternative. We don't want to know whether they had a glass of wine or a piece of cake for their birthday, for crying out loud. We need them to get themselves sorted out.
How do you think it will go in the next general election?
Well, it depends on how Liz reacts to what she's being given. I think she'll be given a free rein to get on with it. And as long as she's got the right people behind her and she listens to those people, which I think she will, I think she is a listener, and she will listen to those people, take on board and gets the right team around her, I think this country can get itself sorted. And I think they could get itself sorted before 2023. To a degree, there's an awful lot of long-term things that need putting right. The NHS, our own probity for energy, that sort of thing. But I think she's got the credentials. She just needs to believe in herself.
She needs to have your phone number. That's what she needs.
Well,
Then she can talk to you.
I was just going to say to you, do you want to come on the show every day?
I did speak to Eamon a few weeks ago.
Oh, did you? Oh, well,
Put
never
him
mind.
right.
You've got the top team now, so
Yeah.
you're all right.
Absolutely. You're my fun weekend. Look forward to that. Just for the last couple of weeks.
Oh. Well, look, it's been really good to see you this morning, Denise. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, we come back
Thank
to what you were saying. Bye. We come back to what you were saying yesterday, is that the next Prime Minister ought to actually do that, have a committee of regular people.
Yeah. Ordinary people talking common sense.
Talking common sense, but talking it quite forcibly.
Yeah, because, you see, the interesting thing is with people like Denise, and I've forgotten his name now, is it Des? We were talking to yesterday.
Certainly Des was one of the people we spoke to yesterday.
You know, you may not agree with what Denise was saying, but she makes coherent arguments that you can disagree with, and you could have a discussion with her about them, but she's making some very clear points that provoke thought and potentially provoke some action.
See, that's a very interesting point about the fact that we keep talking, or we keep hearing the politicians talking about handouts, and that's their word, not mine, to the vulnerable and the very poor, the people who are worst off in society, and people on benefits. But there are people who work crazy hours and really, really hard for low pay, and they're not in that category, and they need help.
They do. Interestingly, on that, Joan's been in touch already this morning. Joan, thank you for getting in touch. She says the government needs to extend the amount of people who are entitled to the £650, which is part of that pipeline of cash the Prime Minister was talking about yesterday. Some pensioners are just outside the criteria for claiming pension credit, therefore miss out on lots of help. We as pensioners cannot afford these crazy prices. We are not all well off.
Yeah, that's right.
So there you go.
And Robin Cheshant has found a way to ease the energy or the cost of living crisis in his house. He says, I've cancelled certain other media outlets, saving £100 a month. As long as I've got GBNews on Freeview, I'm happy. I like that.
In the meantime, Seamus has said, I just wanted to say, Anne, that your hair looks great with the ruffled look.
I didn't know it was a ruffled look.
It is ruffled.
Sort of bed hair.
Bed hair. Also, love the outfit.
Well, thank you.
She was a bit worried it was too sparkly, but it's lovely.
I thought it was a bit too glitzy, but it's Sunday and it's a bank holiday and everything else is doom and gloom.
So why not a little bit of shimmer?
And a really nice bright tie.
Yeah, nice bright tie. I got this because there's a little bit of red in this jacket somewhere, so I thought...
It's in a little button there. And on your... it's a very posh jacket, this. Yeah. It's got little flashes of colour. Like it.
Yeah, so I thought I'd match the tie.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I try my best at 3 o'clock in the morning, getting dressed in the dark.
It's hard. It's a hard life. Yeah. It's a tough life, isn't it? Anyway, do stick with us. We've got much more to come, include looking through the lens of the world's most powerful space telescope. So do stay with us.
Well, let's have a look at the weather for you, and it's going to be a cloudy morning for Scotland with some rain, brighter elsewhere with sunny breaks. Here are the details.
Well, starting off in the southwest, and whilst there will be some higher level cloud, keeping the sunshine a little hazy, it will be mostly bright and a warm day.
It's a similar picture further east and around the capital. There'll be some warm sunny breaks in the cloud with highs in the mid-20s.
Then heading back westwards over to Wales, and here it will be mostly dry and often bright or sunny, with just a small chance of a shower.
In the Midlands, then, there'll be plenty of fine and bright weather, some warm, sunny breaks. Similarly to yesterday, there may be the odd shower around, but for most, it's going to stay pretty dry.
The same can be said for northeast England. Again, it will be mostly fine afternoon, but you can't rule out 1 or 2 showers, with temperatures peaking in the low 20s. Not bad.
Well, let's head to Scotland, where it's going to be a cloudy afternoon for much of the country. Towards the north and west, there'll be some rain, while southern parts have the best chance of some sunshine.
And a couple of sharp showers. It's interesting, sharp showers. They're likely in Northern Ireland, but it will not be as wet here, and there should still be some bright and sunny spells around.
So, some further rain for Scotland this evening. Any isolated showers will die out, leaving a dry night. And that's how your weather's looking today.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Yes, coming up, we're going to be joined by Claire Pearsall and David Hamilton. Yes, Diddy David, for a look at the papers.
And Dr. Amos Ogunkoya will be here to tell us more about a monkeypox vaccine trial. That's just before 7.
Yeah, and we also want to hear from you. Where do you think is the best county in Britain?
I bet you've got a view on that one.
Well, I'm sure you have. It may not be actually where you're living at the moment, because I love Worcestershire, and every time I ever go back there, because I don't live anywhere near there now, you just think, oh, why don't I still live here? It's just so beautiful. And, you know, Evesham with all its fruit orchards, and the Malvern Hills I always think of as well. And I love Worcestershire. I think it's got so much to offer. And I now live much near Oxfordshire, and I've lived in Oxford for many, many years. And people say, oh, Oxfordshire, surely. But it's almost like it's too easy for Oxfordshire. It's just like too easy to say Oxfordshire. Yeah. So I'd go for Worcestershire.
It's got to be Cumbria for me. Again, that's where I was born. Well, because it is such a beautiful place. You've got the Lake District.
Yeah.
And it's actually got quite a low population density, which means if you're a lover of the outdoors, then you've got all that space and freedom and nature and beauty. And it's home.
Yeah, but that's not a valid reason, is it?
Yes.
No, I don't know whether it is, really, because if you're saying where is the best county, you've got to judge it on other factors, not just the fact that it's home.
Yeah, but so many people go there.
Well, they do, because
so
the Lake
it's
District.
Popular.
Yeah.
Of course, it opens up the whole argument, doesn't it, about Cumbria and Lancashire, because, of course, it used to be part of Lancashire.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it changed in 74, 75, something like that. So you still got those Cumbrians who say, I'm a Lancashirean, really.
Oh, but you're a Cumbrian.
I'm a Cumbrian.
Yeah. And I went to Anglesey for the first time just about 2 weeks ago. I now know why people wax lyrical about Anglesey.
Oh, really? I've never
Wow, it was beautiful, yeah. It's just always been so far away. I've never quite got there myself. But, it was absolute knockout place. Is Anglesey a county?
I don't know.
I don't know. But where is the best county? Love to hear your view on this.
Yeah.
GBviews at gbnews.uk. But don't just tell us why and say it's just because it's home. Want to hear what its attributes are, maybe. Or why should we visit? Sell it to us.
Oh, yes. Now, I'm well dressed this morning because I happen to be wearing these lovely cufflinks, which are modelled on, they're exact tiny replicas of the James Webb Space Telescope. And lovely Anne bought these for my birthday.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I just happened to pop them on today.
But that was quite by luck you put them on today.
Yeah, I just popped them on this
Because
morning.
we're going to talk about the James Webb Space Telescope.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. You're going to get a shot. There you go. Look at those. Exact replicas. Lovely. There you go.
Okay, very shiny.
Anyway. Yeah, because NASA's James Webb Space Telescope has detected... Well, I mean, they detect lots of exoplanets, but they've got really good detail on this one, meaning, hopefully, that a new era of astronomy is upon us where distant worlds can be scanned for signs of life.
Insights into the formation of the planet that it's been able to pick up, well, apparently shows that it is formed from a hot gas giant called WASP 39b, very catchy, and 700 light years away from us in the Virgo constellation.
Well, to help us make sense of what this means in real terms, let's talk to entrepreneur, philanthropist and astronaut Per Wimmer, who joins us from Copenhagen. Per, it's good to see you, as always. It's always a joy to have you on the show.
Good morning.
What do you make of... Well, it's not the discovery of this exoplanet, but the fact we've been able to look at it in more detail than ever before.
Yeah, no, this is truly extraordinary. I mean, this is rocket science in play here. They've been working on the James Webb Telescope since the 1990s, and it's in terms of what they've been able to achieve here is just extraordinary. When you compare the images from the Hubble telescope, which we thought was just amazing, it was really a groundbreaking exercise. You bring in the James Webb Telescope, it's a whole different level. It basically allows us to see way into the past and effectively hopefully understand how the whole universe came about. I mean, you can effectively see light from, hold on tight, 13 billion years ago. I mean, this is mind-boggling, but that far back, which basically allows us to not only see how our galaxy was formed, but actually the universe potentially. So this has enormous potential just because it's so clever and it's so detailed. So yeah, this is very exciting.
It's an absolute work of art, but also engineering, isn't it? But the fact that it got up there, it was launched so successfully, and then it unfolded all those gold discs, and it's worked straight away. It's absolutely astonishing, isn't it?
It is astonishing. It's an enormous technical feat to be able to do that, actually. But it's no coincidence. When they started in the 1990s, the original budget for the program was $1 billion. It ended up costing $10 billion. So it did run over a little bit, and also in terms of time. And it really required not just the amazing talent from NASA, but also ESA and the Canadian Space Agency. So lots and lots of clever engineers, lots and lots of money, and lots of time. It really took. But so far, it's worked flawlessly, and it's just been extraordinary. The James Webb Telescope is composed of 18 mirrors, if you like. You can't launch a big telescope like that as a standalone. So you have to effectively have the individual mirrors packed together, and then you have to open them up. And just that exercise alone, a lot of risk attached to that, but they did it. And now we're seeing these first amazing images coming down, and it just looks extraordinary. So we're now going to have an opportunity to learn so much more about the origins of the universe, the origin of our lives, why we're here. So these key questions that I guess lots of people have been asking themselves when they were kids, how did it all come about? And then also, interestingly enough, the name James Webb actually very beautifully combines. James Webb was the NASA administrator from 1961 to 68. Obviously, during the Gemini and Mercury and Apollo era, a very, very historic area, obviously, for NASA when we started walking on the moon. It kind of combines that beautifully, that historic area, with now where we're opening up to the next historic area, understanding the deeper meaning of life, the deeper universe here. So I think it's very beautiful, actually, and holds enormous potential to our understanding of the universe.
Yeah, but is there also the possibility, Per, that we could at some point in the future get a look at a planet and detect gases, emissions, even bits of technology that would at least suggest that there is some form of life on another world?
Yes. I mean, we have already, with the pre-James Webb telescopes, been able to detect certain constellations where theoretically there are Earth-like conditions. The Earth is very unique in the grand scheme of things, in the grand galaxies and universe, because you have this unique combination of water, lots of water, good temperatures, not too hot, not too cold, and a nicely protected ozone layer, which we must continue to protect. That prevents us from being exposed to all this massive radiation that comes from the sun and the universe. But there are other planets out there that have the same conditions, and where you could theoretically find life. And being able to peek closer in, get a closer look up on that might actually, get us lucky. And who knows? There might be these famous other Martians out there, or other life out there that we have all been talking about for a long time. Theoretically, it definitely is a possibility, but we would like to prove it in practice.
Yeah, I bet we would. It's always a joy to talk to you, Per Wimmer. Thank you very much indeed. Come back to the studio sometime soon.
Yeah, we'd love to talk.
Thank you. Flying back to London today.
Oh, are you?
Oh, right. Oh, good.
See you next
Book
Friday.
Consider yourself booked.
Thanks, Per.
Thank you.
Thanks a
It's
lot.
interesting, actually, isn't it? When you look at the pictures that the James Webb is showing at the moment, a lot of people, and it certainly was my reaction, is that sort of like the Hubble has produced. They're just very, very pretty pictures of incredible points of light. To the ordinary eye, it doesn't look any very different from Hubble pictures, does it? But to the scientists who can interpret them and say, actually, that is so much further away, and that's telling us this and this and this. You need the interpretation with the picture.
You do, because some of the images do look very similar, but they're actually much further away.
Yeah.
And when you look, if you ever get... Sometimes they show it on YouTube and things, and you actually see the point in the sky from our perspective, just standing here, that they're focusing on, and it's so unbelievably small.
Yeah.
And they just go in and in and in.
Yes,
And
that's
in
the
and
point.
in.
It can do that.
It's phenomenal. And do you see those new pictures of Jupiter?
No.
That came out as well, and again it looks totally different because they've managed to get so much detail on Jupiter, and they've filtered it in different ways, so it actually makes it look blue. But they had these colour filters on, and they've again been able to detect so much more detail on Jupiter, including aurora on the poles and. Oh, it's fascinating.
It is incredible. My son's got a telescope, and because the recent weather has been so good, we've had very, very clear skies. And nothing, I mean, it's only an ordinary telescope, as it were, but nothing is so thrilling as looking through it and seeing Saturn and seeing the rings around it.
Oh, yeah.
You just think, wow, I just can't believe it. It's almost like seeing it with the naked eye. It's just such fun. And if you zoom in on the moon, and you can actually see craters very clearly, but it moves quite fast by you, and you have to readjust the telescope and it moving again. And that's because the moon is moving, obviously. Yeah. And you don't realise when you're looking with the naked eye, it just looks as though it's there for quite a long time, but it's moving quite fast. Oh, it's fascinating stuff.
Love it. Keep us going all morning on this.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have much more to come for you, including all the headlines in the Sunday newspapers. That's in a couple of minutes.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Loads of you getting in touch already this morning.
Yes.
Darren, Fiona and Sophie, morning you three, say we're off to the South Lake Safari Park in Ulverston this weekend. Well, actually, it's in Dalton. There you go.
Maybe they're going to a different one.
No. But you have to drive through Ulverston to get there. But you need to actually head to Dalton to get there. So if you're heading there, don't put Ulverston in your sat-nav because you won't quite make it. You'll have another 4 miles to go. But there you go. So that should be fun.
So you know the South Lake Safari Park?
Oh, yeah. I've never been. I've actually never... All the family go all the time. I've never been.
And it's a proper safari park with lions and tigers and things?
It's got all the bits and bobs now. I mean, it's quite small, but it's very popular.
Oh, lovely.
So there you go. Paul in Durham says about the best county, I vote for Durham.
Well, you would.
Why,
But I want to know why. Yes, we're talking about best county.
So there you go. Irene says, Anne, you look lovely, a little bit of freshness for the morning.
Well, there you go, I try. You have to try a bit harder when you're tired, and I'm quite tired today, I don't know why.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh.
Working too hard.
Well, chance of EFI thing.
Sleeping too much.
Not enough, I think. Anyway, let's go through the papers for you this morning. Former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall and legendary broadcaster Diddy David Hamilton. Good to see you both this morning. How are you?
Thank you.
It's lovely to see you, yeah. And David was telling us there's no moon this morning, which is a bit of a worry.
It was really dark coming in this morning. I mean, I know there's a full moon, there's a half moon, there's a crescent moon.
And there's waxing and waning moon.
Yeah, there was no moon at all. It was just absolutely... I wonder if the moon, like everybody else, has gone on strike.
Well, I hope not.
There's a gibbous moon.
There is.
I can't remember quite what a gibbous moon is now, but...
There's also a moon window.
What's a moon window?
Well, exactly. I had to look this up because I've been writing about the history of radar, and they were all the scientists. Churchill moved them during a moon window, and apparently a moon window is when the waxing or waning of the moon benefits you rather than the enemy.
Oh.
So depending on if you're moving people, you need to move them in the dark because you don't want the enemy to see that you're moving them or something like that. Right. It's called a moon window. If anyone knows any more, I'd love to know, please, because apparently Churchill used that phrase. So maybe it's a moon window.
There's an awful lot of mooning going on.
There is. Trust you to get that in.
I guess.
Right.
By the way, can I just say there's no truth in the rumour that I'm here for the new series of Gladiators.
Oh!
Just in case you thought I might be.
Well, I thought you might, actually.
You'd be a great host,
He'd be a
David.
terrific host, yes.
There you go.
Yeah. Are you ready?
I think not.
Anyway, let's talk leadership. Claire, in the Telegraph, Sunday Telegraph.
To get away from the moon for the moment. This is Liz Truss and her sort of ever-changing Treasury plans. I just wonder how much of this is to put it out there to see if anybody likes the idea before it goes ahead. You do get that kind of feeling of floating a policy, see how it goes, before they take it up as their own plans.
So tell her what's the latest idea that's got the press today?
So this one is a VAT cut, the 5% VAT cut on energy bills, which would instantly help families. And I think it works out to be about £1,300 a year we would be better off with energy bills. Now, it is... For a Conservative, this is really quite a big step, and it's more of the sort of Gordon Brown school of motoring. This is what he did during the financial crisis in 2008. A 5% cut would cost the government £3.2 billion a year, which is an enormous amount of money. However, I think we now need to look at what families are going to be going through in the winter, how cold people are going to be if they can't afford to use the gas and electricity, and work out if this is in any way possible. I think we are now down to these. I don't think it is going to be enough. I really, really don't. I mean, I think the government is setting us up quite nicely for the potential of blackouts in January. We've had that dripping in over the last few weeks. And you can see that it's going to be an enormous amount that is needed to make this any better. But unfortunately, what we have to do is one of these quite nuclear options really, really quickly.
And this would be fast, wouldn't it?
This would be very, very fast. And it would help almost immediately.
Anyone here remember the 3-day week?
I don't.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. I do, yeah.
I remember doing my homework by candlelight.
I remember all that back in the 70s. 3-day working week, rampant inflation. Yes.
All the rubbish piling up in the streets.
Everywhere.
Much as it is in Edinburgh.
History repeating itself, isn't it?
They do say if you live long enough, history always repeats itself.
Everything comes round again.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know whether in modern days anyone would accept this, the idea. I mean, back then, yes, they said, all right, you're only going to get your electricity 4 days a week. And for 3 days, you will get no electricity, which is an astonishing thing. I can't even imagine people taking it.
I don't think it would work now because we're so reliant on technology and electricity in a way that we weren't before.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Actually, it would actually have a huge impact on a different impact on people.
But also, we all use it differently. People are working from home, people work different hours. You couldn't, suggest that it's going to go off between 8 and 9 because, people are working at those times. Our lives are different to where they were in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't get on the internet, would we?
No.
I think my child might explode if he couldn't use his devices at home.
Your radio station go off the air, David?
Yes, no, I've just got my own generator in case that happens. I'm ready for every eventuality.
You can afford to put fuel in the generator.
Well, that's another issue, isn't it, of course? But no, I have actually just gone out and got myself a generator because if everything goes off, I won't be able to broadcast.
No, you've got to do
My listener will miss me.
He will. He will.
You have to send them a postcard instead.
Let's talk about the NHS crisis in the Sunday Times, David.
Yes, indeed. Well, apparently Britain has fallen out of love with the NHS. I would have thought this would have been happening for a long time. A poll has revealed that 3 in 5 people now expect delays. There is a shortage of ambulances, a shortage of beds. I must say that I have recently been having treatment at St Luke's Hospital in Guildford and on the NHS, and they have been absolutely wonderful. And I think as soon as you mention the word cancer, suddenly, you know, people do take notice. But other than that, the biggest problem, of course, is seeing a doctor.
Well, a GP, you mean?
A GP,
yes.
yeah. It's not hospitals. I think it's doctors are the biggest problem. And even with the treatment I'm having, I've never seen my GP.
Really?
Incredible, yeah. I just went straight to hospital.
But this poll seems to be suggesting that we've fallen out of love with the health service, that we now sort of accept the fact that even if we need health care, we're not going to get it, or we're going to have to wait ages for it.
I think everybody realises that it's the government's fault and not enough money has been ploughed into the NHS. And I think, as with everything else, blame the government.
Well,
I don't think it's necessarily just about the money. I think it's how we use the health service. Now that we're all living longer, more conditions can be treated. The NHS wasn't set up to deal with the amount of people that we have, the conditions, the different technologies. Things are more expensive. I don't necessarily think it's about the amount of money that's going into it. I think the management of the NHS as a whole needs to be looked at. The layers of management and the different jobs that you don't necessarily need, diversity leaders, etc. When it just needs to be structured a lot better.
Yes, but when you look at it, the structure of the NHS was designed in the 1950s, wasn't it? And it was a very different world then.
But if we're falling out of love with it, maybe that means people will be more willing to see some major changes.
That's it.
Well, it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, what reality is there of that actually happening?
Wow.
You know, where do you begin?
Don't know.
Well,
That's
no
above my pay
politician.
grade.
Yeah, no politician is going to want to do that before a general election. They would be seen as tinkering with the. Oh, you can't tinker with the NHS.
And that's the funny thing about the great British public is that we love our NHS. No one else is allowed to criticise it apart from us. And if anybody wants to change it, we will have a big problem with it.
That's right. We won't let them.
It's a really difficult one for politicians.
Didn't somebody say this week, if you have to beg, steal or borrow, go privately?
That's right. That was a clinician.
Who said that this? Yeah,
it was
this
a
week.
West Midlands consultant.
Yeah. But what a frightening thing to say.
Yes,
to tell
Well,
people that.
Yeah.
It is, and even if you beg, steal, and borrow, it's still out of the range for an awful lot of people, which is the issue. The civil service in the Sunday Telegraph. Jacob Rees-Mogg wants to sell off their offices.
No, I don't think this is an all bad idea, if I'm honest. He, Jacob Rees-Mogg, thinks that he can, raise sort of £500 million worth of savings, a sell-off of £1.5 billion worth of government offices sitting empty in Whitehall. Yeah. Well,
good.
Prime real estate sitting empty, why not sell it off? It's quite interesting. It's not just a work-from-home ethic, but also the government has moved a lot of offices outside of London. For example, 7,000 jobs now are outside of London, including 1,389 in Yorkshire and Humber. If you're looking at spreading this across the country, people are working differently, could be hybrid working, then you don't need a static office in the middle of Whitehall, costing you X many millions pounds a year. So I don't think it's a bad idea. I know that this will ruffle some feathers amongst the civil servants themselves, but if you're not using
But if they're not in there...
What's the point in having it sitting there empty when it could be sold off? It's not your problem. You don't have the ongoing costs, and especially of energy costs.
And we need the money right now, but it would be nice if they could be turned into housing, because we need housing. We don't need more offices.
And I think that's the real issue, isn't it? Is what you use the space for.
But it would be very expensive housing, wouldn't it? It's going to be elite flats.
Well, but that again is the point. It shouldn't be.
And unfortunately, it would.
It should be affordable housing.
But
that's what we need.
We need, some smaller properties so that people can start off on the housing ladder, or also affordable
so that they can live near their work.
London. Absolutely. You think where Whitehall is, it's right near to
St Thomas's Hospital.
St Thomas's.
Yeah.
You could have health staff living there.
Yes.
You don't need to have this as prime office space. And I've been in some of the offices in Whitehall, and they're beautiful buildings. But they're the worst used buildings that I think I've seen with the waste of space.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm all for selling those off, putting the money back into the economy. But as Anne said, if we can do something with the housing crisis, then I think the government would be onto a winner.
He's going to be levelling up, Minister, under Liz Truss, isn't he, Jacob?
Apparently so. Apparently so.
Well, maybe this is a good way of levelling up.
Yes, yeah. I mean, putting jobs out, into places like Sheffield and into the Humberside area. Perfect. Why not? Absolutely. Why should government always be centred around London?
Yeah, fair dues, as we say. We're got to leave it there for the time being, Claire and David, but we will catch up with you a little bit later on. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's bring you up to date then with the latest headlines. And Merseyside police have made fresh appeals for information after 2 men were arrested on suspicion of murdering little Olivia Pratt-Corbell. They've been released on bail. One of the men who was questioned has been recalled to prison after breaching the terms of his licence. Police are urging the public to come forward so they can bring those responsible to justice.
A car once owned by Diana, Princess of Wales, we told you about yesterday. It's a black Ford Escort RS Turbo, driven by Diana between 85 and 89. It was expected to reach £100,000 at auction. It got to £650,000.
That's astonishing. The government has launched a scheme to promote the next generation of UK artists on a global scale. The Government Art Collection is launching the scheme, known as X-UK, to showcase British creativity. The project will show artists' work displayed across embassies and government buildings around the world.
Now, UK health officials have started trying out a monkeypox vaccine. It's 5 times smaller, the dosage, than the previous dosage, and it comes as the country's stockpile is set to run out before an order of 100,000 more doses arrives in September.
With more than 3,000 Brits having been diagnosed with the disease since May, vulnerable groups are being urged to get vaccinated in a bid to curb the rate of infection.
Oh, well, let's talk to our favourite GP, Dr Amos Ogunkoya, who's in the studio. Good to see you.
Good to see you both.
What do we make of this, then? I mean, do we really need a new vaccine? Because the smallpox vaccine, which has been around for decades, is quite effective, isn't it?
I don't think this is a new vaccine. So what I think they've done is that they are using the same vaccine, but they're using a lower dose of it. And I think the reason why they're doing this is they want to spread it. It's kind of like the herd immunity thing we all heard about in the past, where they think the best way of protecting the public is to vaccinate the max amount of people. So the dose is one-fifth the amount that you would get normally.
Yeah, right. So it's a more efficient way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing that we've spoken about monkeypox before, in that it's generally not fatal, but it can be very painful, and people don't want to get it. And if they're in certain communities where it is spreading, then they want to get vaccinated. And there have been queues for it, haven't there?
Yeah.
I know in America they've just said, I think they have run out of the vaccine, or they're just about to.
Yeah, so the Americans and the European Union made the step a little bit earlier, probably a few days earlier, and they've realised that it's just as effective. The evidence is still, the jury's still out of, if it's comparable to the full dose, and so they've pushed the button on this and said, we want to vaccinate as many people as possible, because we've had some terrible shortages. I know Brighton ran out because the demand was so high, and they're getting replenished, and so it's about making sure what we do have we can use to the maximum effect.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Look, amidst all of this, we were just talking in the papers about the NHS, people falling out of love with the NHS a little bit.
I mean, that.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that's right from your experience? I mean, a lot of criticism is falling on GPs. So, you're not seeing enough people. That's putting pressure on A&E and hospitals and all the rest of it, waiting times and heaven knows what else. Should you be doing more?
I think the idea of falling out the NHS, I think the NHS will always be a stalwart. Like, it's the institution that we're most proud of in this country, because it's free at the point of use. I think people are frustrated, and I get the sense that is happening. And I think it's because of people have the sense that it could be run more efficiently, and people aren't getting the service they would want from it. I think that the pressure, I mean, there is a bit of an issue because of the backlog, because of COVID, and we're still catching up, and it's kind of the hangover, just like we have in the financial crisis because of the COVID. We still have a lot to catch up on and a lot of things that need to be brought to speed. And the NHS was struggling before COVID as well.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just kind of just drawn people's attention to it because people are aware of how important it working to a good capacity is. Because it used to be that you may not need it for a long time. And now people know we're in a situation that if we do have a bad strain, that they need it to work efficiently. So people are just more focused on it at the moment.
Yes, I think generally when you speak to people is that they're finding it quite difficult sometimes to see a GP, and they're finding very long queues in A&E. But once you get to see the people that matter who can actually treat you, it's still wonderful. That tends to be the reaction.
It works. When it works well, it works beautifully.
Yeah.
And it's something that I'm proud to be part of, because what you get to do is actually change people's lives and make it better. And sometimes, and I find it frustrating, is that you know and you see someone in front of you that needs help and needs help quickly, and you know there's a long wait. And that's difficult. And I think a lot of professionals and a lot of doctors are finding that process hard. It is getting better slowly. But not as quick as we want it.
But you're not going to give up on it, are you?
No, I don't think it's something that we should give up on. I think we should all pull together and accept that the people in the service are trying as hard as they can. And sometimes it falls below what we want it to do, but I think we should keep pushing with it.
Yeah. Dr. Ogunkoya, always good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
OK, well, do stay with us because there's lots more to come, including reading out some of your views because they're coming in thick and fast. Don't forget, you can join in on anything we're talking about, GB Views at gbnews.uk.
Well, let's have a look at the weather for you, and it's going to be a cloudy morning for Scotland with some rain, brighter elsewhere with sunny breaks. Here are the details.
Well, starting off in the southwest, and whilst there will be some higher level cloud, keeping the sunshine a little hazy, it will be mostly bright and a warm day.
It's a similar picture further east and around the capital. There'll be some warm sunny breaks in the cloud with highs in the mid-20s.
Then heading back westwards over to Wales, and here it will be mostly dry and often bright or sunny with just a small chance of a shower.
In the Midlands then, there'll be plenty of fine and bright weather, some warm sunny breaks. Similarly to yesterday, there may be the odd shower around, but for most, it's going to stay pretty dry.
The same can be said for northeast England. Again, it will be mostly fine afternoon, but you can't rule out one or two showers, with temperatures peaking in the low 20s. Not bad.
Well, let's head to Scotland, where it's going to be a cloudy afternoon for much of the country. Towards the north and west, there'll be some rain, while southern parts have the best chance of some sunshine.
And a couple of sharp showers. It's interesting, sharp showers. They're likely in Northern Ireland, but it will not be as wet here, and there should still be some bright and sunny spells around.
So, some further rain for Scotland this evening. Any isolated showers will die out, leaving a dry night. And that's how your weather's looking today.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
In just over a week, we're going to have a new Prime Minister. But as we enter the final 7 days of campaigning for Tory leadership, have Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak done enough to win the top job?
Good morning. It's 7 o'clock on Sunday, the 28th of August. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
We're live across the whole of the UK, online, on your radio, on TV, wherever you are and whatever you're up to, you can take us with you.
So here are your top stories this morning. The last full week of campaigning to persuade the Tory faithful that they are the person to be crowned the next Prime Minister. So should we expect any last-minute pledges from either of them?
Well, it is reported today that Liz Truss is considering a 5% cut in VAT to help with rising bills. Is this something that you would welcome? Is it a sensible way to help with the cost of living crisis? Let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
And gladiators, are you ready? Everyone on their marks and get ready for the brand new series of that popular show from the 90s. We're joined a bit later on by former gladiator Wolf.
Loads of you already getting in touch. Keep them coming. We're going to go through some in just a second. gbviews@gbnews.uk. I want to kick off with a comment from Linda, who, and I understand what Linda's saying, but I don't think you're right. I've got to be honest. She says, how about stopping sensationalising this crisis that we're in? It's obvious the government will help, and to keep banging on about it and getting lefties on with their partisan take is hysterical and boring.
When have we got lefties on with their partisan take?
But you know what? I think, Linda, everyone has a partisan take, and it's about getting a mix of views on. You know, I think you're right. It's obvious the government is going to have to help, but it's how we do it.
Yeah, but if we don't make a fuss, they wouldn't.
No.
I mean, don't you have to stand up for what you want the government to do? They are, after all, serving you. So I think, whilst I think the media can be blamed for a lot of this heating or eating type headline stuff, I really do think that if you don't moan, you won't get with certain governments, and that's what it looks like at the moment. So, no, you've got to stand up and demand what you want.
Philip makes a good point. Why have we got standing charges? They should be scrapped. That's £22 a month saved.
That's infrastructure, I suppose, standing charges.
Well, it is for infrastructure, so you can't get rid of them altogether. But why are
they
being
very
increased?
High. Yeah.
They're being increased.
Yeah.
And
so if you used absolutely no energy, if you said, right, in fact, somebody's already said there, they've put fairy lights around the house that are solar-powered and they're wearing a jumper already, so I'm not using any electricity, but you'd still have to pay the standing charge.
And that's still going up.
Yeah.
Though David in Hartlepool's doing all right. He said, last year I paid over £1,200 on gas and electricity. Have I got my sums wrong? As if it goes up 80% and I've already had £400 and £650 due from the government, then this year I'll not be paying much more than I did last year. Well, good for you, David. I mean, that's a result, isn't it? Yes. Pretty good.
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't quite understand how the 400 and 650, and if there's a VAT cut, that would mean £1,300 back to us. Is that going to be enough? It's difficult to know how to add it all up and whether you'll get everything you're expecting, I guess, as well.
Because VAT on fuel is 5%, isn't it? So we get rid of it altogether. So I don't know why that saves us 1,300. I mean, I just don't know. It all gets very, very complicated.
Nessie in Dorset says, good morning, you two lovely people. Off to work very soon, and it's my birthday. Happy birthday. I'm even doing an extra 4 hours on my shift today. I'm a carer and have been for many years. I would like the new Prime Minister to think about domiciliary carers, as high cost in fuel is not helping.
No, that's a fair point. And Wendy in Canterbury says, love watching the show. In between reading the news and discussing serious topics, your interaction with each other is very nice. Natural.
Wow. Yeah, it is natural.
And it makes your viewers and listeners feel as though they're in the same room and being part of the conversation. Don't ever leave. Well, that's what it's all about. It's all about the conversation. It's all about being the GB News family.
Yeah. Be part of it. GB Views at gbnews.uk. Get stuck in.
Now, we are into the final week of campaigning in the Conservative leadership contest. Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss battling out for those last remaining votes. But who has done enough?
Well, both candidates, as we know, have made plenty of promises to entice the voters, but we are fast approaching the one time where they're going to have to deliver them. Can we expect any last-minute pledges this week?
Well, the Sunday Telegraph is saying Liz Truss is considering that 5% cut in VAT to help with fuel bills.
So, earlier we spoke to the political journalist David Wooding about the last week of campaigning and asked him why we're not hearing anything from Rishi.
She is busy going around the country. This final lap of the leadership race has split into two distinct campaigns. Liz Truss is busy telling us what she's going to do to win over the public ahead of an election in 2 years' time. Also trying to get MPs on side with her, because don't forget, Rishi Sunak was more popular among the parliamentary party than Liz Truss. So that's why you're seeing those last-minute defections. On the other hand, Rishi Sunak knows that he's behind among the voters, and he's trying to sweep up those last-minute votes and is touring the country trying to get every little vote he can. That's his only hope of getting into number 10.
But, I mean, that in itself is interesting, isn't it? Because it means Liz Truss is already trying to garner public support, which is ultimately what matters if they're going to win the next general election.
Yes, and I did have some fears for Liz Truss that she's given so many promises and pledges in order to win the party crown and the keys to number 10. Will she have anything left to give away in 2 years' time?
It's interesting because when we did our poll, when was it, Friday morning?
Friday morning, yes.
Friday morning. And when we were asking people, what is the word that most springs to mind when you think of Liz Truss? The word that came up top was untrustworthy. And you can only presume that's because she appears to have flip-flopped and changed her mind about things. So perhaps it isn't all sewn up.
Well, that was a thing which some of the MPs who didn't back Liz Truss were saying to me in the earlier months. Well, she'll be found out during a leadership campaign. She'll drop a gaffe, and that was the one thing I think Rishi Sunak was pinning his hopes on, was that she would implode. Now, there was one moment where she made this pledge to have regional pay boards, which would have meant massive pay cuts for teachers, police officers and other public servants. But she made a very swift U-turn on that, which saved her skin in many ways.
Well, she's also U-turned on the idea of handouts, what she calls handouts, doesn't she? She said there will be no handouts, and already she's thinking of an acceptable way to do it.
Well, realistically, she has to do some handouts. And this VAT cut today, that will cost £3.2 billion, but it will knock £1,300 off the average outgoings for a house, an average household in Britain.
So, I mean, what's she proposing? Is it cut off VAT on everything, or cut on VAT on fuel? Or
what it seems to be, well, there was a talk of a 5 percentage point cut on fuel, but now the word is it's going to be between 2.5% and 5% across the board. So that would cut everything from everything you buy. So
and it would be fast, wouldn't it?
It would be fast, and it would hit everybody's pockets immediately.
Yeah, I mean, she's still got a lot of work to do. I mean, on the basis that she walks into number 10, which we're expecting now. I mean, she's got to hit the ground running on this, hasn't she? There's no time to waste, because if she takes her time over anything to do with the cost of living crisis, she's going to be absolutely hung, drawn and quartered.
Well, there are multiple problems facing the next Prime Minister. We've got the war in Ukraine, we've got The unions are all restless. We have, rail strikes and so forth. We've also got, cost of living rocketing, energy. Not only the energy price crisis, the cost of energy, it's the supply of energy, which is a big problem. All these things have got to be fixed, and these are things which should have been fixed decades ago. So not only has she got to look on the long term, but she's got to get some very quick hits. Don't forget, there's also the migration crisis. There's all these issues which nobody's been able to deal with, and they've got to. She's got to find some results very quickly. If
is she tough enough to do that? I mean, she comes across as being quite tough in many ways.
Yes, I mean, some of the older hands in Westminster have told me that they remember Margaret Thatcher coming in, and she was a screechy woman with a cardigan on, and they made her over. She lowered her voice, and she showed she had a lot of metal in her. And like her or loathe her, she won 3 elections and tackled some of the problems, inflation being one of them, which we now face. And there was a war going on very soon.
It does make you wonder who on earth would want to be Prime Minister at the moment. You've just laid out all of the problems that need solutions, and they need it fast because there will be an election as well to face. So, I mean, do you have to be breathtakingly arrogant to be Prime Minister?
Well, poison chalice doesn't begin to cover it. And in fact, what you say, Anne, is correct. The last few Prime Ministers have had this. I mean, David Cameron...
Maybe you need it.
Well, I don't know.
You've got to have self-belief just to think you can tackle the job.
Well, yes. You cannot choose the moment that you become Prime Minister. Everybody would like a level playing field where things to be easy. Theresa May inherited the Brexit mess as it was then. And then Boris Johnson came in at a time when we had a pandemic, which was unfortunate for him. So Liz Truss is just going to have to take what's on the table and deal with it.
And what will happen to Rishi if he does lose? Where will he go, do you think?
Well, there were suggestions he would serve, and now it looks to me like he won't. I would suggest... if Liz Truss wants to be diplomatic, she'll offer him a job like health, and he'll...
Yeah, but he's been Chancellor.
No, he's not going to want it.
I mean, that's the trouble with the fact that he was Chancellor once. The only promotion, really, from that is either sort of Deputy Prime Minister, which isn't really, is it, or Prime Minister.
Foreign Secretary, perhaps, but I think that job's already...
Do you think he's out the Commons?
Taken. Well, I think he may hang around until the next election and then go. I mean, in his leadership election campaign, he once or twice mentioned California. Not saying he was going to go there, but what a great place it was, and the entrepreneurial spirit he witnessed when he was out there.
And they'd love him there, wouldn't they?
So maybe that's what he'll do.
He should have hung on to that green card, shouldn't he?
Not a bad idea.
No, there you go. Dear. David, good to talk to you. Thank you. He knows his stuff, David Wood.
He does, doesn't he? Really does.
It's interesting about different views. We're talking to Denise last hour, weren't we? Who gave some really good views. And she did it in a nice but forceful way. Sue in Canterbury says Denise blames Keir Starmer for not coming up with any solutions. She was saying, the Labour Party aren't really coming up with any policies at the moment. Parties tend not to in opposition.
In opposition, yeah.
But Sue in Canterbury says that doesn't matter. He's not in power. The Tories are, and they have been for the last 12 years. This is all down to them, and subsequently only they can sort it out.
Only they?
Yeah, well, the point is, if Labour wants to get into power, they've got to say how they would sort it out, don't they?
Have.
After weeks and weeks of overindulgent leader hustings, which only a percentage of the nation can vote on, Boris fiddling while Rome burns, it really is time for the Tories to get their finger out and look after this nation. We have no one to help us, just us as a nation now.
I mean, when they predicted that it would be a sort of zombie government during the leadership election, I think that's probably how it's turned out to be, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, but then again, this is what I don't understand. That I don't understand how the Labour Party moans the Prime Minister's not been around to do anything, whereas they would have moaned, they wanted him out. And,
if he'd done anything.
And they would have moaned if he had done anything.
Yes, of course they would.
So, I mean, I think it's a lose-lose, to be honest.
Yeah.
As far as that goes. But anyway, there you go. Let's bring you up to date with some of the other headlines this morning. And Jacob Rees-Mogg will unveil plans to sell off £1.5 billion worth of government offices in central London as civil servants refuse to stop working from home. The strategy, due to be published next week, comes as Mr Rees-Mogg called for civil service staff numbers to be cut by 20%.
She's still Foreign Secretary at the moment. Liz Truss has, though, vowed to bolster Britain's defences if she becomes Prime Minister, including by pushing ahead with renewing Trident. She warns the era of complacency is over. She's now set out her plan to protect the UK, including an update to the government's integrated review and strengthened support for intelligence services.
A car owned by Diana, Princess of Wales, has sold at auction for, wait for it, £650,000. It's a black Ford Escort RS Turbo driven by Diana between 85 and 88, and initially they thought it might fetch £100,000.
I don't get why you'd pay £650,000 for an old, previously owned, even by Diana, Ford Escort. Why would you pay that much?
And it hasn't got aircon.
No, it won't have anything like that.
No.
I mean, obviously it's because of the Diana value, but just shows the sort of value she still has all these years later.
But you think people would buy it as an, I know it sounds a bit cynical, but they buy these things as an investment. So they must think it's going to be worth more.
We don't know who has bought it. I'm sure the journalists will be trying to find out
it's
who
one up
and
north.
why. Yeah, it's somebody in Cheshire, and the voting in the end came down to just two people bidding for it. Yeah, one was in Dubai and the other one was in Cheshire. And in the end, Dubai pulled out, and whoever it is in Cheshire got it for $650K. That is a lot of money for a car. What do you do with it? I suppose if you were displaying it, but it would take a long time before even displaying it would earn back $650,000.
More money than sense, some people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there you go.
Very odd, isn't it?
Mind you, Cheshire, what a nice place to live.
Exactly. Very nice. We were talking about what's your best county in England. No, in Britain. The whole of Britain. Les, who's a proud Geordie, says the best county by far is Northumberland. Wild hills, ancient castles, and some of the best beaches. Wild beauty spots such as Bamburgh, with its impressive castle, or Holy Island, the birthplace of Christianity in Britain, or Kielder Forest and Reservoir with its dark skies. All this is accessible from Newcastle with a superb airport and the East Coast main line running through it. You really are proud, aren't you?
Yeah, Newcastle Airport is a great little regional airport, actually.
Heard that before.
Sheila agrees with you. Oh, she says we both look very smart. Thank you very much indeed. I was born and brought up in Broadway, Worcestershire, and it is the best county.
Broadway is beautiful.
I spent my days riding around Tower. You can see 13 counties from the top of the tower.
Right. Yeah.
When I was 29, I married my US pilot in Oxfordshire, lived abroad, went back to Oxford, retired to Stow-on-the-Wold. So the Cotswolds are outstanding. Beautiful Britain is best.
Yes, and quite a few people agreeing with me that Anglesey is incredible. Though Helen says it's the most beautiful island, but don't tell everyone. It's part of Gwynedd County. Welsh is my mother tongue, and although I now live in Devon, my heart is in Anglesey. It's just the weather. Of course, I was very lucky. I saw it during the heatwave. I mean, it was just incredible. Blue seas, blue skies, and just rolling countryside. Absolutely gorgeous place.
It does sound very nice.
Yeah.
It does sound very
but
nice.
you don't get those sort of lovely green rolling fields without a bit of rain, do you?
No, you need the wet weather. It's what keeps us a green and pleasant land. Keep your thoughts coming through, and some for Cumbria, please. The beautiful Lake District, one of our national treasures, if you don't mind. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Now, it's interesting we were talking about Princess Diana's car there. Let's now talk about electric cars, because apparently they're going to be more expensive to run than petrol cars from October because of the latest price cap hiking up the price of electricity.
So those costs are going to punish drivers. What impact is it going to have on the environment as well, tied into all of that? Let's talk to Asha Moses, founder of Sherbet London, which is an electric taxi company, I think, in London. I think I'm right in saying. Look, are you worried about what impact the increased cost of electricity is going to have on you and your drivers?
Absolutely worried what's going to happen in October. If we go back to 2018, when we first bought electric taxis, the average cost was 7 to 13 pence kilowatt hour to charge. If you look at today, we're hitting 22 pence per kilowatt hour, and it's constantly increasing all the time. And with the new caps that's coming along in October, and also not knowing the future of electricity, drivers who wanted to invest in electric taxis are now rethinking, is that the right move for us to do? It's a very challenging situation.
Yes. Were they more expensive than petrol taxis to start with, to buy?
Well, that's exactly the point. These vehicles are nearly 70-odd thousand pounds in comparison to the old diesels that were around 45,000 pounds. We were encouraged to invest into electric. Sherbet, the electric taxi company, with my colleagues, other fleet owners and electric taxi drivers, we've invested over 300 million pounds in the mayor's strategy to go green, to lead the globe with a fantastic icon like our London taxis. And to be honest with you, we're now feeling let down that we've taken the challenge face on, and it's now that these prices are going up, we simply won't be able to cope with charging our vehicles. It'll be more expensive than diesel. Diesel's coming down at the pumps. Petrol's coming down at the pumps. So there seems to be a disparity. It's not fair to us who have invested in electric.
I mean, it is hugely difficult, isn't it? I mean, because you were sort of part of a strategy that from the Mayor of London, do you think there should therefore be support for businesses like yours?
Yeah, without doubt. Not only my businesses, taxi businesses, anybody who's invested in electric taxis and went along the lines with the mayor's strategy, it's not only for the mayor to stand up to support us, it's down to the government to support us as well, and Transport for London. It seems to me that the government, Transport for London and the mayor have forgotten this beautiful asset that we've got, which is the iconic licensed London taxi, which is a global benchmark for taxis around the world. We're leading the way going into electric, using technology and data to make the world's greatest taxi company, and the support is actually going backwards. There is no support for electric taxi investment.
No, I know. I can understand your anger because you feel you're investing in the future, you're paying more to buy them in the first place, but you are leading the way forward, and suddenly this comes up and bites you in the bum, literally, almost.
Well, this is just another arena that's biting us in the bum. It's time to really look at the national assets that we've got. And licensed London taxis is a national asset. Every country in the world would love to have electric taxis like the London electric taxi and the London electric taxi drivers. But what you see, government, TfL and the mayor all seems to be investing in companies like Uber, who don't pay their taxes in London, who don't live in London, who don't work in London, and they seem to be investing in the hope of technology rather than the iconic assets that is actually delivering the mayor's strategy.
What would you say to those people? Now, I don't know if it applies to taxis, but there are a lot of companies where you can get, if you have an electric car, you can get electricity for free. I mean, that was certainly the case with Tesla at one stage. I don't know if it still is, and some other companies. You've got to fill up charge up at certain points. But nevertheless, there is free electricity available. Now, I'm guessing that doesn't apply then if you're running it as a business, does it?
Well, all our drivers are independent businessmen. They're small SMEs. They're their own managing directors. So they should be entitled to electricity, to get electric free. There are some shopping stores that you can go and park your car, do your shopping and get some electric for half an hour whilst you're shopping in their stores. But this needs to be a more regular thing. We need to find newer ways and innovative ways to charge our vehicles, because all of a sudden this investment and this hope of going green and clean in London is disintegrating in front of our eyes.
I guess if the worst comes to the worst and you don't get the sort of help you're talking about, you would have to charge more for the taxi.
Once again, the so-called myth of expensive taxis, that licensed London taxis are expensive. Licensed London taxis are in line with all, doesn't cost more than other taxis. You've got choices of calling a low-cost brand like Uber, a premium brand like a Sherbet, an electric taxi. But again, prices will go up if electricity goes up. If the vehicle goes up, again, and it hits the consumer. And then businesses in London can't afford to move their CEOs, their C-suite of London, the decision makers, the movers of London, won't get through London in a clean, green and taxi because they've all got corporate social responsibility to go green. But, you know, if the expense is too much, we might as well go in any vehicle.
Yeah, no, fair point. Asher, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. I mean, it's a tricky... I've always wondered about electric cars. I mean, I know we're all going to have to go electric, actually, before too long. It's not that many years away when it's all going to change. But where does that electricity come from?
Oh, absolutely.
It
has
all
to be
comes primarily from gas-fired power stations at the minute.
There's a story in the Mirror today about Jacob Rees-Mogg, who had to go to Wrexham in Wales for a visit, and he spent £1,300 on a taxi to get there and back, where he could have actually done it by train for 98 quid.
Ooh. Was it his own money?
It wasn't, but it might have to be.
Yeah, I mean, he's minted.
We'll find out more.
He's minted.
Yeah, he can.
So it'd be all right, but if it's taxpayers' money, well, then I've got a little bit of an issue with it. There you go. OK, well, do stay with us. Let us know your views, as ever, gbviews@gbnews.uk. We've got lots more to come. Next up is some sport news with Aidan. Well, let's have a look at the weather for you, and it's going to be a cloudy morning for Scotland with some rain, brighter elsewhere with sunny breaks. Here are the details. Well, starting off in the southwest, and whilst there will be some higher level cloud, keeping the sunshine a little hazy, it will be mostly bright and a warm day. It's a similar picture further east and around the capital. There'll be some warm sunny breaks in the cloud with highs in the mid-20s. Then heading back westwards over to Wales, and here it will be mostly dry and often bright or sunny, with just a small chance of a shower. In the Midlands, then, there'll be plenty of fine and bright weather, some warm, sunny breaks. Similarly to yesterday, there may be the odd shower around, but for most, it's going to stay pretty dry. The same can be said for North East England. Again, it will be mostly fine afternoon, but you can't rule out one or two showers, with temperatures peaking in the low 20s. Not bad. Well, let's head to Scotland, where it's going to be a cloudy afternoon for much of the country. Towards the north and west, there'll be some rain, while southern parts have the best chance of some sunshine. And a couple of sharp showers. It's interesting, sharp showers. They're likely in Northern Ireland, but it will not be as wet here, and there should still be some bright and sunny spells around. So, some further rain for Scotland this evening. Any isolated showers will die out, leaving a dry night. And that's how your weather's looking today.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
"7:28 morning to you, watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne."
We're going to be ruffling through the papers in about 10 minutes' time. And Liz Truss has vowed to bolster Britain's defences if she's made Prime Minister, so we'll hear from Major General Tim Cross just after 8.
Now, we are extremely lucky, Anne, to have Aidan McGee with us this morning to take us through the sport, because he was...
extremely lucky.
Because he was, how can I put it nicely, out on the lash
yesterday.
I mean,
come on, kind of. Yeah, no, we had a great day. Dean, who's a producer here, recently started working here. And I put a word in for him to get his job, so my reward was that he took me for hospitality at Watford against QPR.
Oh,
and QPR's our team, and we won 3-2. We had a fantastic day. He was on 0% lager because he's taken the job seriously and he has to be up at 1:30 in the morning.
Excellent.
I wasn't quite as responsible, but I revelled in the occasion.
Were you in a posh area?
Yeah, we were actually. Yeah, I was amazed I didn't get kicked out, but no, it was.
Yes,
It was fantastic. It really was. It was. We made a real day of it, and as I say, we don't win away very often, and we did it yesterday, so it's wonderful.
Good
It was wonderful. Yeah.
Smells like a brewery, ladies and gentlemen.
That's just the alcohol in the aftershave.
Oh, right, yeah. Let's talk Liverpool, should we? Because it's not often you see a score line like this against.
Wow, I've only just seen it.
Yeah, extraordinary. I mean, we were in our posh area at Watford, and the news came through that they were 6-0 up after about 50 minutes or something. And we thought, goodness me,
this is Liverpool v Bournemouth.
Yeah, so Bournemouth has been promoted. They have recently been in the Premier League, but their managers arguing that because they've lost some loans from last season, they lost some of their loan players, have gone back to their parent clubs. They're actually weaker this season than when they came up, so they were kind of lambs to the slaughter in some ways. However, Liverpool haven't won this season. They lost at Manchester United on Monday. It was a good performance at Man United, I felt, but they were turned over by United. I think they had something to prove, and I think someone was going to be on the end of this. And it does happen now and again. I mean, it's only the 4th time it's happened in Premier League history, going back, 30 years now, but it's happened 3 times now in the last 4 seasons. So Manchester United did it to Southampton. Southampton were beaten home 9-0 to Leicester, and it happened again yesterday. So it's a rare feat, a big day for Roberto Firmino. He got a hat-trick and he set up 3 goals as well. And the Liverpool manager, Jurgen Klopp, being magnanimous as he often is, he went to the Bournemouth coach, Scott Parker, afterwards and said, listen, your season isn't going to be defined by this result. There's lots of other games left. You ran into us today when we were in a...
But just to underline it, for anyone who didn't quite hear, they won 9-0.
Yes, 9-0, yeah.
9-0?
I know.
That must have been awful for Bournemouth, though.
Yeah, it is, but then sometimes it's how you recover. I remember this happening to Crystal Palace in 1989 at Liverpool, and Ian Wright said he was crying when it hit 6, and it went to 9. They missed a penalty as well, Crystal Palace, on the night. But later in the season, they built from it. They built from 0, below 0. They played Liverpool in the FA Cup semi-final in the following April, and they beat them 4-3. And it was extraordinary recovery. I remember even when Leicester won 9-0 at Southampton 3 years ago, at Southampton, away from home. They played each other about 3 months later. Southampton went to Leicester away and won 2-1. So the scoreline doesn't always tell the full story. Don't get me wrong, Bournemouth were well beaten yesterday, but it's not impossible for a club to hit that rock bottom and recover later on in the season.
I just wonder why they hit such rock bottom, don't you?
You do.
They allow 9 goals in.
There are, but don't forget, Liverpool hadn't won this season. You can often say, well, somebody, with the chances they built up over that period of time, maybe someone was due for a hiding. But Klopp did go to Scott Parker afterwards and say, look, your season's not defined on this result. There's plenty more to come. And you can get further. You're basically consoling him and say, look, you ran into us in a completely imperious mood today. It's not going to happen all the time, and I think that's quite good.
Well, meanwhile, Crystal Palace were 2-0 up against Manchester City. Must have been feeling reasonably confident at that point, until...
It's Man City. You're playing elite clubs, so you're never comfortable even at 2-0 with half an hour to go. I mean, City... One thing I'd say about City, this is the 4th time in the last 6 games they've been 2-0 down, and they've turned it round to win. They even did it on the last day of the season against Aston Villa. You can't do that all the time. You can't keep conceding 2 goals. And so, listen, don't get me wrong, it's not going to happen to City often. Most of the time they will recover. Man United were very adept at doing that back in the day when we had Fergie time and we go into injury time and, United would be losing, and as they did in the Champions League final in '99, famously turned it round. However, with you can't do it all the time. And if it happens to you 2 or 3 times in a season and you don't pull it round, that's enough to let your opponents in and around you. Liverpool were capable of scoring 9 goals yesterday. So that would be my concern. But a hat-trick for Erling Haaland as well, big signing in the summer, and he looked magnificent.
So he rescued the whole...
Well, he got a hat-trick, yeah. I mean, that's 6 goals in 4 games.
So they won 4-2 in the end.
Yeah,
Gosh.
they did indeed. And then Man United yesterday, I was on here yesterday morning saying, have they got the mentality to beat Liverpool on the Monday, and when the pressure's on, all the big players came to the party, but down to earth with a bump, going down to Southampton 12:30 on a Saturday? Well, the answer is yes, they did. They got a 56-minute goal by Bruno Fernandes, and they came away with a win. Suddenly, they're higher than Liverpool in the table, even though Liverpool won 9-0, and supposedly there's a crisis. It looks better than it did. So, it ebbs and flows at the start of the season. I think Arsenal's worth talking about as well. That's 4 wins in a row.
Yes, they won 2-1.
4 wins in a row. We talk so much about mentality, so crucial in sport. I was talking to your previous guest, the doctor, earlier on. He's going to work as a doctor at a football club soon, and I said you'll learn a lot about life in the dressing room and the highs and lows. And the thing about football, and the reason mental health is an issue in football, is because these players, they're either on top of the world or in 5 minutes' time they're down there. They struggle. They struggle for equilibrium. Most of us in our life get highs, lows, and somewhere in between. In football, you're great.
It's either, yes.
And sometimes it can be in the space of 5 minutes. You can score a goal, then miss a penalty. And I've spoken to footballers in the past, and they said they didn't realise how up and down their life was. So that's what I'm saying. Arsenal, the mentality thing, they failed at the end of last season, didn't get into the top 4. But yesterday they were behind at home to Fulham, and they turned it round. 4 wins in a row. Who knows? Maybe with an extra year's experience now, they can go on and compete in the top 4 at the end of the season. Time will tell.
Maybe even in tennis, Emma Raducanu is on the front page of one of these Sundays today, saying that because obviously she's got to defend her title at the Open, the US Open, and she was saying it's been really tough being that projected into fame that suddenly, and to go through all the pressures and Wimbledon not working out and various other things, and the media attention and the money, oh my God, the money sort of thing. But she said, I wouldn't swap it for the world.
No, not at all. I mean, she's also hitting a little bit of form lately as well. Yeah. She's coming into her own. I mean, she's been up and down years. She's had problems with obviously the coach and changing the coach. That wasn't her fault. The coach just said, look, I've been with you from childhood almost, but I can't commit to travelling all around the world. But as an elite athlete, I've got a family. So it wasn't her fault. She had COVID as well. And as I say, she's very, 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 very young. She could go and surprise everybody next week. Yeah. And go and win it. We hope she does.
Yeah. OK. Aidan, thank you very much indeed. Go and get a black coffee. We mentioned Linda earlier on.
Yes. Oh, yes. Linda who's saying...
Don't sensationalise this crisis. A few people getting in touch on that. Mike, you see, I don't entirely disagree with it. It's just, I think it depends what media you're talking about. Mike says it's true the media take bad news and sensationalise it to maximise the drama. They make the problem 1,000 times worse. I think that can be the case, but also you need to balance that out with the fact that we still have to talk about it.
Yes.
And I don't think we sensationalise things.
No, and I don't think we're too negative either.
I think at GBNews we get the balance quite good, actually.
Yeah, I think we're quite proud of it.
I'm not self-praise is no recommendation, of course, but I do think that a lot of people report when they see this show that it's quite a happy environment.
Yeah. Well, that's what Roy says. He said, Linda's right. That's why viewing of the news is in massive decline. I'm not sure it is. Hopefully not for GB News, anyway.
No, our
figures are going up.
They are.
There are no positive points at all, or reporting in a way that doesn't view taking the UK down. I totally agree with you that you can talk something down. You could talk a country's whole, attitude down, and I'm determined not to do that. And I don't think we do we?
No, I don't think we do. But it is right that the media and papers in particular can be responsible for some things. I'll tell you what always sticks in my mind over that one, the Millennium Dome. And if you ever went, it was amazing. It was amazing. But it was still, there were huge queues to begin with. The papers all reported massive queues. You go in, you can't see anything, you've got to wait for everything there. So people stopped going. So then the papers then said, nobody's going.
Yeah,
it's quite expensive, £1 billion though, wasn't it?
And it was, But
I'll tell you what, they got the right, they got the legacy right. It's used...
The legacy, well...
Yeah, they absolutely. I mean, so you get all these white elephants around the world, these facilities that are built for one purpose, and they're empty and they're not used properly. I mean, the O2 is absolutely vibrant.
It's done very well, but they wanted to turn it into a super casino originally. That was the plan.
You're joking.
No, and then that all fell through. That was Part of the Labour plan was to have these super casinos.
I remember that, yeah, because they make money. They do make money, don't
Yeah.
they, these super casinos? But we don't want them, do we?
I don't know.
I went past one yesterday in Watford. Again, it said, I won't mention the company, but yeah, it looks like a place you wouldn't want to be trapped for more than a few hours.
No.
Whereas the O2 is doing very well. It's a good place to
And
go.
it looks
but the
terrific.
Millennium Dome, if you ever went, people used to criticise it to me, and I said, "Did you ever go?" No. It was amazing. But there you go.
Yeah.
Whether it was a good way to spend money or not is another question
Oh,
entirely.
yes.
Keep your thoughts coming through. gbviews@gbnews.uk. All views are welcome.
But there's very much more to come, including the newspapers, coming up with Diddy David Hamilton.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Morning again. Best counties in Britain. James says definitely Antrim in Northern Ireland. We have the Giant's Causeway, beautiful beaches, great golf, food, and most importantly, great people.
Sounds very
Love
good.
it.
I love Liam, because you're an old romantic, Liam. My favourite county is wherever my beautiful wife may be.
Oh.
She is the sun that lights my life.
Oh, I love you, Liam.
That's fabulous.
That's really nice. Neil in Shropshire said it's definitely Conway in North Wales. I lived there between 1987 and 2003. Still have family in North Wales and would gladly go back. It is stunning.
Where my Auntie Brenda lives.
Is it?
There you go. It's beautiful, apparently. I've still not been to see her up there. Must go. Robin in Sussex says the high-wheeled...
Area of National Beauty.
Oh, is that what I wondered what that stood for, AOMB. Soft, rolling countryside,
Lovely way of
beautiful
putting it.
brick and tile houses, oast houses, proper towns with non-chain shops.
Lovely.
Yeah,
I know what you mean about the non-chain shops. It's lovely when you go somewhere and there's independent shops.
See, there's lots of little villages in the Cotswolds which are all sort of like that. And the beautiful Cotswold stone and all that.
Yeah.
Very pretty.
Very
Very nice
nice.
to look at. Keep your thoughts coming.
Yep. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Let's go through the papers now. And joining us this morning is former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall and the broadcaster David Hamilton. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good
Talking
morning.
about the cost of living crisis in the Observer, Claire.
I mean, there really is no good news coming out at the moment. And I thought that this was a particularly interesting way of illustrating the cost of living crisis and what it means to us all. What the Observer have done is broken down household appliances and the price that you will pay after the new energy cap was announced.
Right.
So, for example, if you charge your phone every day for at least an hour, it will cost you 26 pence per charge. So in a week, that's £1.82. Now, none of us only charge our phone for 1 hour of a day.
Yeah.
So you can start looking at that cost and see how that's going to ramp up. And the other one was laundry, which was the one that was most outstanding. A load of washing will cost 36 pence per hour. So 3 2-hour spins a week comes to £2.16.
Gosh, you start to see how it adds up, don't
You do, and I thought that this was a really good way of actually bringing it down, what this is going to mean to everybody. Things that you use every single day.
What
and
about
it goes
a toaster?
to... Toaster. Set you back 4 pence.
For a slice of toast.
For your slice of toast. So it starts to be really, really quite personal at this level with the things, you know, a brew. If you're going to make a cup of tea, put your kettle on, 9 pence.
Right.
That's why they advise you don't. If you're only going to make a cup of tea, only put a cup of water in the kettle.
Absolutely, and you can understand now, and you start
how many of
looking
us
at it.
you boil a whole kettle load and then you use a tiny bit.
You do, and then
let
you
the rest
reboil,
cool down again.
Reboil.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the real problem. Is that this is going to cost everybody. These are things that everybody does. It's not elite things. It's not using a car, which a lot of people don't have. This is vacuuming. It is washing. It is making your toast, charging your phone.
I just wonder, David, do you know what any of these things are? Washing, vacuuming and making cups of tea? Or is that all Mrs H?
Oh, no, I actually make cups of tea.
Oh, there you
yes,
go.
I can actually do that, yeah. I also do a very good jacket potato.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now, you see, that's an expensive thing, a jacket potato.
No microwave.
It means you've got the oven on.
I do it properly.
Yeah, but you have to have the oven on high for a very long time.
Is that the end of my jacket potatoes?
Yes, I think it is.
Oh, God.
That's £1.04 an hour. So if you're putting a jacket potato in,
That's
you're over a pound already.
You're
just
over
for
a
the
pound
oven.
already just to do it. Isn't that amazing?
Well, luckily, I've got a few blackberries growing in the garden, so I'll be able to eat them.
Yeah.
But that, you see, that's interesting because it makes you think if you're going to have your jacket potato, you need to cook something else in the oven at the same time. Maximise efficiency.
Well, you do, and I think is this the start of batch cooking, as we all used to do? Actually, put your oven on, make a batch so you can cool it, freeze it, and you have meals for...
Get it out and microwave it again.
What a way we're going to have to live this winter, aren't we? We're going to have to live like this, aren't we, through the winter? It's awful, isn't it? That's how we're going to have to live our lives to get by.
Is that a bad thing? We're just adapting to changing times. Is that a bad thing to think about the energy we use?
Do you know, I don't think it is. I think that we've all been very used to leaving of lights on, not really thinking about it, charging many devices across a house at all times. And you know what? Yeah, we do have to think about it, and we do have to be a little bit sensible. And I appreciate that this isn't going to be a really comfortable winter for anybody, and some will be worse hit than others. But I think we all need to be mindful of how much energy we actually use and how much we waste.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm already planning on heating one room, heating the lounge in winter, and then hot water bottles.
Yes, I think
at
that's
bedtime.
sensible.
Pop on a sweater, as my mum used to say. If you're cold, pair of socks, sweater, off you go.
Woolly hat indoors if necessary.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, David Bowie goes on making...
Yes, I thought we'd have something to cheer us up a little bit. And it's in the Mirror today. And being a music man, I found this. David Bowie, 2 unreleased tracks have been sold for £5,000 at auction. The songs are called Making Mistakes and Perhaps I'd Rather Be You. Rather unusual title for a song. How you get a song out of Perhaps I'd Rather Be You, I don't know. But David Bowie recorded these back in 1968. I think they were demos, actually. They were never released at the time. So if you happen to have at home any old records, demos or things like that, they could actually be worth quite a lot of money because they sold £5,000.
I would have thought they'd have gone for more.
Me too. I was quite surprised. Yeah, well, 5,000.
Yeah, you think it's a bargain, eh?
Yeah,
you think when Princess Diana's old car has just sold for 650,000.
Mind you, you haven't heard them yet.
Oh, no,
And don't forget, David Bowie was the man who recorded The Laughing Gnome. Do you remember that, The Laughing Gnome? Ya ha ha hee hee hee, I'm just a gnome and you can't find me. Remember that?
Yeah.
That was David Bowie. Sounded like Anthony Newley.
Wow, I didn't forgotten about that one.
So this may be like The Laughing Gnome.
Maybe.
Yes, it
may be horrific.
may well be.
That's a fair point. It's a fair point. Claire, summer of discontent in The Observer.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, you know, going from David Bowie songs to this again, the unions are now looking like they will have some coordination between their strikes, but it would just be short of a general strike.
Yes, a general strike would actually be illegal now, wouldn't it?
It would.
Because that would mean trades unions coming out on strike even though the dispute's got nothing to do with them at all.
Absolutely.
That's not allowed anymore.
That's not allowed anymore. I mean, I would push for not having strikes at all, which always puts my husband in a very bad mood and sets us against each other. But I think that we need to understand that we only have as much money as we do in this country, and everybody has the right to a fair wage. But you can't start demanding more. When do you ever stop? And this is always my argument, is that the unions are there to negotiate, and they're normally very good at it. But if they reach an agreement, what's to stop them going out again and saying, well, actually, 8% wasn't enough, we wanted 10, we'll now have 11. I mean, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep holding a country to ransom, especially when times are really tough.
But they clearly are talking to each other. It's a TUC Congress meeting, isn't it?
It is,
and they are going to coordinate it so it feels like a general strike. There's always, in other words, every day there's going to be somebody on strike.
That's right, and it's the two biggest unions, Unison and Unite, coming together, which will take out the country. And I'm sure that this is what they want. They want to be able to say that we have the power to do this. But
or is it political more than
I now largely think it is political. I really, really do. And especially with the new Prime Minister coming in the next week or so, they're going to really ramp up that pressure. And as I say, I've got nothing against negotiating a good deal for workers, but this now needs to stop. We can't keep having the coordination with services being disrupted. We've had it through the summer and we're now going to have it through the winter. Look what's happening in Scotland with bins. We don't need that to be replicated across the UK.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Can we talk about the Royal Rumble in the Sun on Sunday, David?
Yes, there is a Royal Rumble in the jungle. What has happened is that Prince Andrew's daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, have begged Prince Charles to give their disgraced father a new job. But Charles doesn't want to know. He said, no, wait, this has fallen on deaf ears. But there's something that really amused me a little bit later down. It says about Andrew, it says he missed the birth of Beatrice and husband Edo last September because he was hiding from lawyers trying to serve him a court writ. That's extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, you know, that's just amazing.
I don't think there's a great deal of public sympathy out there.
Oh, no.
But he's got to do something.
And there certainly isn't with Charles and William.
No.
They are pretty determined.
He's got to do something to get some money, hasn't he? I mean, he has to earn...
Is that what it is? Do you think it's a lack
Well,
of
I mean, he has to earn some money somehow.
His daughters have married awfully well. Can't they keep him in a cottage at the end of the road?
But have they? Do we know that?
I think both have done.
We know that, do we?
Yeah.
Now, one of them is a property millionaire, isn't he? But property people are always millionaires, aren't they? We don't actually know that. Yeah, just
the
like
one
that.
sell tequila
Funny,
or
isn't it?
something. Is one of them a tequila king?
I think he is, yes.
A tequila king?
Yeah.
Tequila
it's
drinks,
in the spirits industry.
I don't think they've got a problem. Really.
But no, I mean, they can ask all they like. There's absolutely no... With the royal family, I mean, it would poison the brand entirely.
Yeah. Of course. And that's why William and Charles, as the heirs now, have got to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And it would. But there you go.
Yeah, no, it's scary stuff.
OK, well, we'll move on. Thank you so much indeed, because I want to talk about the best county again. We've got so many ideas coming in about the best county in Britain. Do keep your views coming in. Avril sent in this. She says, this is my Lily and Holly on Wynn Hill, looking over the Lady Blower Reservoir in the Peak District. How is this for beautiful Blighty? That is the most gorgeous photograph. Two absolutely beautiful fluffy dogs in the foreground and these acres and acres of rolling hills in the background. Absolutely fabulous photograph. Thank you so much. If you've got a great photograph of your favourite county or of one of the towns in your favourite county, do send it in, won't you? gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Lady Blower Reservoir. I've not heard of that one before.
No, I know. But it looks wonderful.
It does look very nice. Stop it, Diddy. Terrible. We were talking about electric cars. Would either of you two drive an electric car?
No.
No, you're a fancy
No.
one.
I've got nowhere to charge it, unfortunately.
No, I don't think there are enough charging points either out in the country where I live. No chance.
No, the charging point issue is really bad. Because they're
You
talking
can go much further in the modern electric cars.
You can
Will
get a
take
few
you
hundred
much
miles
further.
out.
Yeah.
But
I agree. It's sort of you're worried about it now.
It's a bit early, I think. I think it's a little bit early yet. I mean, I like the idea, but you know, if you're on a long journey and it takes you an hour to recharge, you know, it takes all the fun out of it, doesn't
I tell you what, John has called in, and he obviously has thought it right through. He says, I run 2 electric vehicles, a Tesla and a Mini. I home charge between 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. at 4.5 pence per kilowatt. My 1,200 monthly miles for the 2 cars costs £12 a month. I have solar and battery storage, so I can bring that cost down to 0 in the summer months. That's where we get our energy from, smart use of transport.
Yeah,
Very impressive.
That's a fair point. I'll tell you what, I don't like the disingenuous advertising. There's an electricity car shop near me which sort of sells all sorts of different brands of them. And it says there are more charging points than petrol stations across the UK. They talk about how easy it is to charge them up. Well, there will be, but each charging point is like 1 petrol pump.
Yeah.
So it's not a fair comparison. And you get to a lot of them and they don't work, and there's a whole host of issues.
David says we need a radical change in energy generation. We are an island, and our biggest resource is wave and tidal power. We just need someone with a vision, like Elon Musk.
Yeah, the tidal power has been a huge problem. They've looked at it for decades and decades, and they can't seem to find an efficient way of making it work.
John in
Don't know why.
Lowestoft says, my electric car costs me nothing to charge. I have solar panels on my roof, so I charge it for free. As long as there's daylight, it doesn't matter what the cost of electricity is.
Yeah, solar power is... I mean, I haven't got any solar power. Quite fancy a bit now. Either of you two, solar power?
No, and I think it's the installation cost, the initial outlay is quite hefty, and I think that kind of puts people off of doing it.
I live in a very old house.
It wouldn't take that.
It's about 600 years old. It's even older than I am. So there's no chance of doing that there. And it's listed as well.
Yeah.
Mind you, I'm listing sometimes.
Yeah. But maybe if it was listed, you wouldn't even be able to put solar panels on the roof.
No, I don't think you are.
Yeah, and it's the batteries are the issue. What puts me off the electric cars are the battery. The journeys aren't long enough for what I would need to sort of get up north or what have you. Richard says batteries are made of lithium, which are a natural resource and cost a fortune to replace. So it's not just the cost of the electricity to charge the battery, it's the short life of the battery, and there'll be more pollution to use them. They've all got to be recycled, I think. They were talking about, what do they call them? Sort of iron batteries, which is a very, very old technology and wasn't that efficient. But apparently they can hold huge amounts of charge, and they're sort of re-looking at iron batteries to make them sort of more modern and usable. So at least they're looking at battery technology, which is a good thing.
Chaz says, why don't the world governments get together and tell these energy companies, not the suppliers, I suppose, the actual manufacturers, the producers, we aren't paying your prices.
Yeah.
Would that work? I don't know.
Might
If
be
you
worth
run
a
an
try.
electric car, what's it really like? Do let us know. How difficult is it? Have you ever been stuck without a charge?
Yeah, GBViews at gbnews.uk. Top stories coming up for you in just a moment. Well, let's have a look at the weather for you, and it's going to be a cloudy morning for Scotland with some rain, brighter elsewhere with sunny breaks. Here are the details.
Well, starting off in the southwest, and whilst there will be some higher level cloud, keeping the sunshine a little hazy, it will be mostly bright and a warm day.
It's a similar picture further east and around the capital. There'll be some warm sunny breaks in the cloud with highs in the mid-20s.
Then heading back westwards over to Wales, and here it will be mostly dry and often bright or sunny, with just a small chance of a shower.
In the Midlands, then, there'll be plenty of fine and bright weather, some warm, sunny breaks. Similarly to yesterday, there may be the odd shower around, but for most, it's going to stay pretty dry.
The same can be said for northeast England. Again, it will be mostly fine afternoon, but you can't rule out 1 or 2 showers, with temperatures peaking in the low 20s. Not bad.
Well, let's head to Scotland, where it's going to be a cloudy afternoon for much of the country. Towards the north and west, there'll be some rain, while southern parts have the best chance of some sunshine.
And a couple of sharp showers. It's interesting, sharp showers. They're likely in Northern Ireland, but it will not be as wet here, and there should still be some bright and sunny spells around.
So, some further rain for Scotland this evening. Any isolated showers will die out, leaving a dry night. And that's how your weather's looking today.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
In just over a week, we'll have a new Prime Minister. But as we enter the final 7 days of campaigning for the Tory leadership, have Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak done enough to win the top job?
Good morning to you. It is 8 o'clock on Sunday, the 28th of August, and this is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
And we're live across the whole of the UK on both your TV and your radio. Wherever you are, you can take us with you. Here are the top stories you should know about this morning.
Well, the last full week of campaigning to try to persuade the Tory faithful that they're the person to be crowned the next Prime Minister is underway. Should we expect any last-minute pledges?
Well, on that, it's reported today that Liz Truss is considering a 5% VAT cut to help with rising bills. Is this potential pledge something that you would welcome? Is this a sensible way out of the cost of living crisis? Let us know what you think. GBViews at gbnews.uk.
And gladiators, are you ready? Everyone on their marks. Get ready for the brand new series of the popular show from the 90s. We're going to be talking to former gladiators Wolf and Rhino later on this morning.
Looking forward to that. As ever, you can join in any of our discussions. Do email us gbviews at gbnews.uk. Now, all morning we've been talking about your favourite county in Britain. What is it? Well, Avril, just a while ago, sent in this lovely, lovely picture of her two dogs, Lily and Holly, on Wynn Hill, which overlooks what I read out as Lady Blower Reservoir in the Peak District.
We thought it sounded a bit odd, didn't we?
Lady Blower, we thought. You thought, I've never heard of Lady Blower.
Yeah, never heard of it. And it's Lady Bower.
There you go.
So there you go. It's the Lady...
Sorry.
So there you go. Thought it was worth correcting because actually it is a famous place. It's where the Dam Busters train.
Oh.
Which is a
In the movie, it doesn't look that beautiful, does it? But my goodness.
So it's where Guy Gibson has been trained
right.
for the raid on the Ruhr Valley. And it was officially opened as a reservoir by King George VI on the 25th of September 1945.
Well, there you go. So I'm sorry about that. Anyone who lives there, it is not Lady Blair, it is Lady Bower.
I thought it sounded a bit hard. But there you go. Richard, now I was waiting for this.
Oh.
Richard says, my favourite county is Yorkshire.
Ah, it's about time, isn't it?
Yes. Right in the middle of the UK, the Yorkshire Dales, North York Moors, Yorkshire coastline. The North Yorkshire is frozen in time with the old farmland still in place.
And Sian agrees. Oh, she says the biggest, of course, it's Yorkshire. Historical majesty, wars of the roses, glorious Pennines, wonderful wolds, magnificent moors, backbone of history and industry, dreamy Lake District and best-humoured people, born in London, but body, heart and soul in Yorkshire. For 56 years.
I mean, Yorkshire is a beautiful place. You can't get away from it. Also, mentioned the Millennium Dome earlier on because they got such negative press saying too many people were going, and then people stopped going. So the press said, "Oh, not enough people are going," which is typical of the papers. I tend to think. Sheila says, "I agree with Stephen. The Millennium Dome was in fact magnificent and a wonderful experience. So good we took the children a second time and parents-in-law. They were amazed." It was something quite spectacular going in there. I absolutely loved it.
And it looks wonderful. From the river, it looks fantastic too. Penny in Watlington agrees. She says, having spent a fortune taking 2 children to the Millennium Dome, at the end of the day, we asked what their favourite exhibit of the day was. And the consensus from both of them was McDonald's. Oh. There's children for you, isn't it?
Yeah. I remember at the time, everyone was moaning. All the papers were slagging off the Millennium Dome.
They were,
I think about. At the same time, they were all really praising... what's that art gallery that opened?
The Tate.
The
Modern.
Tate.
Tate Modern?
Tate Modern in London. And so me and my mum went to the Tate Modern, which was free to get in. And we almost got thrown out for laughing.
At the exhibits inside?
Yeah, it's just so
some of them are weird.
I mean,
Not all of them are rubbish, though. Some of them are really interesting.
Some of them
Did you go into a room that had lots of big silver foil balloons?
Yeah, but what's that all about?
Well, it was moving on.
What's that all about?
It was wonderful.
We did go into a small room where there was 2 naked people playing... naked ballet dancers they were.
Oh.
And me and my mother just stood there looking at these naked ballet dancers, just going, well, what on earth is this all about?
I know. But it's kinetic art.
It was kinetic, all right. I'll give you that. There are some things you want to see with your mother and some you don't.
No, I quite agree. That's awkward.
So we came out of that. I said we were laughing so much we almost got thrown out.
I see.
So
okay.
we thought that was rubbish. We thought the Millennium Dome was great. But there you go. We're common northerners.
Well, you know what you like in art, don't you? And you didn't like that very much.
No, what we like, and we like what we well know. There you go. On to the news then. We're into the final week of campaigning in the Conservative leadership contest as Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss battle it out for the last remaining votes. Who do you think's done enough?
Yeah, both candidates have made plenty of promises to entice the voters, but we are fast approaching now the time when they're going to have to deliver on them.
Can we expect any last-minute pledges? Well, the Sunday Telegraph saying Liz Truss is considering a 5% cut in VAT to help with fuel bills.
Well, earlier on we spoke to political journalist David Wooding about the last week of campaigning, and we asked him why we're not hearing anything from Rishi.
She is busy going around the country. This final lap of the leadership race has split into 2 distinct campaigns. Liz Truss is busy telling us what she's going to do to win over the public ahead of an election in 2 years' time. Also trying to get MPs on side with her because, don't forget, Rishi Sunak was more popular among the parliamentary party than Liz Truss. So that's why you're seeing those last-minute defections. On the other hand, Rishi Sunak knows that he's behind among the voters and he's trying to sweep up those last-minute votes and is touring the country trying to get every little vote he can. That's his only hope of getting into number 10.
But, I mean, that in itself is interesting, isn't it? Because it means Liz Truss is already trying to garner public support, which is ultimately what matters if they're going to win the next general election.
Yes, and I did have some fears for Liz Truss that she's given so many promises and pledges in order to win the party crown and the keys to number 10. Will she have anything left to give away in 2 years' time?
It's interesting because when we did our poll, when was it, Friday morning?
Friday morning, yes.
Friday morning. And that when we were asking people, what is the word that most springs to mind when you think of Liz Truss? The word that came up top was untrustworthy. And you can only presume that's because she appears to have flip-flopped and changed her mind about things. So perhaps it isn't all sewn up.
Well, that was a thing which some of the MPs who didn't back Liz Truss were saying to me in the earlier months. Well, she'll be found out during a leadership campaign. She'll drop a gaffe, and that was the one thing I think Rishi Sunak was pinning his hopes on, was that she would implode. Now, there was one moment where she made this pledge to have regional pay boards, which would have meant massive pay cuts for teachers, police officers and other public servants. But she made a very swift U-turn on that, which saved her skin in many ways.
Well, she's also U-turned on the idea of handouts, what she calls handouts, doesn't she? She said there will be no handouts, and already she's thinking of an acceptable way to do it.
Well, realistically, she has to do some handouts. And this VAT cut today, that will cost £3.2 billion, but it will knock £1,300 off the average outgoings for a house and an average household in Britain.
So, I mean, what's she proposing? Is it cut off VAT on everything, or cut on VAT on fuel? Or
what it seems to be, well, there was a talk of a 5 percentage point cut on fuel, but now the word is it's going to be between 2.5% and 5% across the board. So that would cut everything from everything you buy. So
and it would be fast, wouldn't it?
It would be fast, and it would hit everybody's pockets immediately.
Yeah, I mean, she's still got a lot of work to do. I mean, on the basis that she walks into number 10, which we're expecting now. I mean, she's got to hit the ground running on this, hasn't she? There's no time to waste, because if she takes her time over anything to do with the cost of living crisis, she's going to be absolutely hung, drawn and quartered.
Well, there are multiple problems facing the next Prime Minister. We've got the war in Ukraine, we've got the unions are all restless, we have rail strikes and so forth. We've also got cost of living rocketing, energy, not only the energy crisis, the cost of energy, it's the supply of energy, which is a big problem. All these things have got to be fixed, and these are things which should have been fixed decades ago. So not only has she got to look on the long term, but she's got to get some very quick hits. Don't forget there's also the migration crisis. There's all these issues which nobody's been able to deal with, and she's got to find some results very quickly.
Is she tough enough to do that? I mean, she comes across as being quite tough in many ways.
Yes, I mean, some of the older hands in Westminster have told me that they remember Margaret Thatcher coming in, and she was a screechy woman with a cardigan on, and they made her over. She lowered her voice, and she showed she had a lot of metal in her. And like her or loathe her, she won 3 elections and tackled some of the problems, inflation being one of them, which we now face. And there was a war going on very soon.
It does make you wonder who on earth would want to be Prime Minister at the moment. You've just laid out all of the problems that need solutions, and they need it fast, because there will be an election as well to face. So, I mean, do you have to be breathtakingly arrogant to be Prime Minister?
Well, poison chalice doesn't begin to cover it. And in fact, what you say, Anne, is correct. The last few Prime Ministers have had this. I mean, David Cameron...
Maybe you need it.
Well, I don't know.
You've got to have self-belief just to think you can tackle the job.
Well, yes. You cannot choose the moment that you become Prime Minister. Everybody would like a level playing field where things to be easy. Theresa May inherited the Brexit mess as it was then. And then Boris Johnson came in at a time when we had a pandemic, which was unfortunate for him. So Liz Truss is just going to have to take what's on the table and deal with it.
And what will happen to Rishi if he does lose? Where will he go, do you think?
Well, there were suggestions he would serve, and now it looks to me like he won't. I would suggest... if Liz Truss wants to be diplomatic, she'll offer him a job like health, and he'll...
Yeah, but he's been Chancellor.
No, he's not going to want it.
I mean, that's the trouble with the fact that he was Chancellor once. The only promotion, really, from that is either sort of Deputy Prime Minister, which isn't really, is it, or Prime Minister.
Foreign Secretary, perhaps, but I think that job's already...
Do you think he's out the Commons?
Taken. Well, I think he may hang around until the next election and then go. I mean, in his leadership election campaign, he once or twice mentioned California. Not saying he was going to go there, but what a great place it was, and the entrepreneurial spirit he witnessed when he was out there.
And they'd love him there, wouldn't they?
So maybe that's what he'll do.
He should have hung on to that green card, shouldn't he?
Not a bad idea.
No, there you go. Dear. David, good to talk to you. Thank you. Is it? Just watching that back, I was just intrigued by the fact there's a week to go.
Yeah.
And we're sort of already talking about what Rishi does next. Will he be leaving the Commons, sort of thing? I mean, it's surely... I know it's not over till the fat lady sings, but it just seems like it's...
Because none of us actually know. They don't even know, because the 1922 committee that deals with all of this sort of election business, they don't release any figures on who's voted. They don't even tell us how many people are voting, do they?
No, and actually, from my understanding, they're sort of collecting the votes and all that's coming in electronically and what have you, but they're not counting them. They don't.
They're not even counting them at the moment.
No.
Oh.
Count them on the day.
Oh, I see. OK.
That's my understanding.
If you're exhausted by the whole process, at least there's only 7 more days to go.
Yes, nearly over. And then Liz Truss will be in.
Is that right?
It's basically what it boils down to, doesn't it? You never know. They might prove us wrong. Might prove us wrong, but...
That would be a turnaround. But like I said, is the hearing nothing about Rishi Sunak at the moment in any of the papers, or he doesn't appear to be doing any announcements or pronouncements. Is that because the media has decided and they're just simply not reporting what he's saying? Or is that because he is... he's given up? I don't know. It's very difficult to tell, isn't it?
Interesting. Anyway, let's say a week to go. Let us know what you think. If you've got any thoughts on all of that, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Let's bring you up to date. And sticking with politics, actually, Jacob Rees-Mogg is unveiling plans to sell off £1.5 billion worth of government offices in London because civil servants, part of the reason for this at least, civil servants still working from home. It's part of a strategy to be published this week, and it comes as Mr Rees-Mogg called for civil service staff numbers to be cut by 20%.
Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak's team has criticised Liz Truss's plans to cut VAT by 5%, calling that plan incredibly regressive. It's understood that Liz Truss has discussed what she calls a nuclear option with her advisers, which would reportedly save the average household more than £1,300 a year. And of course, this comes as the Tory leadership contenders are under growing pressure to present their strategies to help millions of Britons struggling with record energy prices and inflation.
The majority of voters don't trust either of the Tory leadership candidates on the NHS, apparently. This is a YouGov poll. It found that voters' faith in the health service continues to decline as the UK faces a public health emergency. The Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, unveiled a number of measures this last week, including allowing retired staff to return to the front line while still keeping their pension benefits.
And a car once owned by Princess Diana has sold at auction for £650,000. The black Ford Escort RS Turbo, which was driven by Diana between 85 and 88, was initially expected to fetch around £100,000.
I'm intrigued by that poll saying people don't trust either Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak with the NHS, but people are losing faith in the NHS.
I don't think people are losing faith in the NHS.
Don't you?
Do you?
I think, well, it depends what you mean by losing faith, doesn't it? I think people are accepting
they're fed up they can't see their GP.
Yeah.
And they're fed up with the fact that ambulance service appears to be struggling so badly. And when you get to A&E, it seems to be complete mayhem.
Oh.
Although I have to say, my recent experience, not the case. But I don't think they've given up on the NHS. I think we still love it.
Yeah, I think it needs reform, though.
It does.
I think it does need reform. It depends who you are. If you're just an occasional user, then I think it's more problematic. If you're someone like me who, because I'm a type 1 diabetic, I have quite a lot of interaction with the NHS, then, and with my sort of condition, they do, they don't mess about. If you need to see them, they sort it out.
But that's because you have an ongoing relationship with them, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, so that's pretty
it's
good.
It's people who who hardly ever use the NHS at all, and then suddenly something's wrong and they want to try and see a GP or call an ambulance and find that that's not working. They're the people, I think, who quite rightly are angry that that things aren't working. But I think once you're in the system, it's like if you've got an ongoing condition, once you're in the system and you know the people that you can ring and ask for an appointment, rather than going through the entry system, which doesn't seem to be working as well as it should.
I mean, that's the thing. I've got these various nurses and consultants and things that I can just email.
Exactly.
Say,
in fact,
can you see me tomorrow? They go, yes, we can. And you just
in
go and
fact,
do it.
one of our lovely viewers, and I haven't got... Oh, Christine in Mansfield, I think, says, stop referring to GPs as the NHS. They're not part of the NHS. They are businesses commissioned by the NHS.
No, it's that. Technically, you're wrong on that. I only say that because I recently did some work with the National Pharmacy Association, and the pharmacies are actually part of the NHS as well, so they're private businesses as well, but they're still within the NHS structure. So GPs and pharmacies are part of the NHS. It's how they get a lot of
they
funding.
are. It's what they call it's the first level entry, isn't it, into the NHS? I mean, a lot of GP practices are run as businesses.
Oh, yeah.
And they have a budget accordingly and everything, but they're still part of the NHS.
Yeah, they are. Though I understand the point you're making, but it's not technically not right, but I get the point.
Liz says, I'm a full-time carer for my 93-year-old mother, and I've sat in A&E for hours after a nasty fall, and she was kept overnight. However, kids coming in with lesser injuries seem to go through before. I think they should split A&E up in between adults and children. When I was in A&E for a long time, just the other day, there were a couple of notices up saying, please do not be violent to our staff. And somebody I was sitting next to said, it's in London, you go to one of the London hospitals and there are posters like that everywhere because it is so rough in A&E in certain hospitals in London. People coming in with knife injuries, still carrying their knives, threatening the nurses and everything like that. There's no doubt there's a real problem in A&E at the moment, isn't there?
I mean, I do... who was that lady who's with the mom, 93-year-old mom? Liz. Do you know, I understand the frustration. The problem is with A&E, I think, is that when, obviously, you go and register your details at the front and what have you, is you don't know what the issue is with anybody else particularly.
No, it's not your business, frankly, it's theirs.
Yeah, but I know it gets incredibly frustrating when you see these people going through and you think, well, what's up with them? Why do they have to be seen first?
Yeah, but you can't go around doing that, can you?
Once you've sat there for 4 hours and you say, why are they going in?
Yeah.
So I totally understand that. But they do the whole triage thing, don't they? So I guess you've got to rely on their judgment.
I wonder whether certain A&Es work well because the guy in charge is good, or woman.
Yeah.
You know, like a school. Some schools run very, very well on exactly the same sort of budget as the school next door, and some managers or head teachers or whatever manage perfectly. And I was in Stoke Mandeville, very famous hospital. I was in Stoke Mandeville A&E the other day, and it ran like clockwork. Really good.
Yeah.
Let us know your view.
Yeah, do, please. Now, let's have a look at Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, who's vowed to bolster Britain's defences if she becomes Prime Minister. She said the era of complacency is over.
She's pledged to follow through with the renewal of Trident, and she's committed to boosting defence spending to 3% of GDP by 2030.
Well, Rishi Sunak won't match that. He says he does not believe in arbitrary targets. Instead, he says defence spending would increase to 2.5% of GDP over time and match our needs as and when.
Well, here to discuss these pledges and the wider defence situation, Major General Tim Cross, thank you very much for joining us. Major General Cross, thank you very much for joining us, indeed. Liz Truss says there's been a complacency and it's got to end. Would you agree?
On balance, I would, really. One of the problems with talking to a crusty old retired general is, I can immediately start telling you what it was like 30 or 40 years ago. I mean, I joined the army in 1964 as a cadet, which was barely 20 years after D-Day. And in those days, we had 3 divisions in the British Army of the Rhine, based in Germany. We had a strategic reserve division. We had an air mobile brigade, an airborne brigade, a commander brigade, and so on. We were very committed around the world. When the Cold War came to an end, and we took that very seriously, and it went on for 30 plus years. When the Cold War came to an end, I think we did become complacent. We took a peace dividend very quickly. We got involved in Iraq back in 1990. But really what we moved into is an era, what was called wars of choice. You decide whether or not you want to be involved, and you decide on the sort of level of commitment based on certain criteria. And in my view, over these last 20 years, we have become complacent. We never really put sufficient resources in terms of military into Iraq or Afghanistan, and we weren't prepared to stay there for the length of time that we had been involved in, for example, the Cold War. So I think we have been complacent, and what's happening in Russia, Ukraine, and indeed elsewhere, I mean, autocracies, dictatorships, China, and so on, has made people realise that we do need to think again about how we're going to engage in not just defence policy, but foreign policy and other aspects of our external relationships as well.
I mean, we're rapidly heading towards a point, aren't we? Might be there already, that if we didn't include the reservist numbers in the army figures now, we actually wouldn't technically have enough people to call it an army under the general rules. I mean, our figures are so far down.
They are, and you wouldn't expect me, you know, as an ex-army man to disagree with that. I mean, the bottom line is the British Army would not fill a football stadium, Premier League football stadium, Old Trafford or whatever. The numbers of reserves have fallen dramatically. The numbers of regular forces are below the target that was set when there was a reduction. It was supposed to go to about 82,500. We're actually recruited well below 80,000. And there is this issue of mass. It's interesting, the Defence Secretary is always speaking against this, but the reality is numbers count. And for example, in Ukraine, the Ukrainian military has lost the equivalent of the whole of the British Army's infantry thus far in this campaign against Russia. So, you know, these numbers are important. And again, you know, the problem is, you know, I know civil servants who would like to see the army reduced to 60,000. And I just think this is crazy. It's crazy on the basis if you want to engage with the world, you know, in terms of global Britain and all the other things that politicians talk about, then you need to be prepared to put the resources in to do it. You need to assess the threat. What is the threat out there? What do we want to do about it? What are the options for dealing with it, be that in soft power or hard power? And in terms of the military, what are the different capabilities you need to do it? The Navy, the Air Force, the Army, and in particular today, of course, cyber and other domains, as they're called. And to be fair, the Integrated Review did look at that and came to various conclusions, but this Russian invasion has changed the dynamic, I think.
Well, that's what I was going to ask next. I mean, for years we've been told, and certainly clearly politicians have believed, that the very nature of war is now different and we won't need the sort of force that we've had before, certainly not the numbers that you've been talking about. And yet Ukraine seems to have upturned that apple cart of an argument, doesn't it?
It does, and we moved away from an era of where people believed state-on-state warfare, as in World War II, as in the Cold War. You know, that had moved on. Iraq in 1990 disproved that for a while, but most people thought that we'd moved away from state-on-state warfare to having to deal with things like terrorism and insurgencies and other things, and peacekeeping operations and peace support operations, many of which I was involved with over 30 years, including the two Iraq wars and the Balkans and so on. Now, we do need to be careful here. I don't think there's anybody who believes that Russia's about to invade the United Kingdom. So the issue is, how do we as a member of NATO respond to what's happening in Russia? And how does NATO think through what it wants to do about issues like China and Taiwan and other things too? We need to remember that more than half the world lives under the thrall of autocracies and dictatorships. You know, liberal Western democracy is a relatively minor part of the way the world operates. And if we want to defend the rule of law and establish justice and righteousness in a world, the sort of brutal world that we live in, you know, and I've seen the mass graves being dug up and what people do to each other in these places, and I think we do need to engage in that, then we need to get away from the idea that we can just deal with things if we feel like it's a good idea at the time, wars of choice, and recognize that state-on-state warfare has not gone away, and we need to be prepared and capable and able to deal with it should it emerge.
Just a brief thought. Do you think Rishi Sunak should have just kept his mouth shut on this? It's been an issue raised by Liz Truss, what she promises to do. He's decided to chip in and say, you know, he doesn't believe in this. He would match our needs as and when it comes to military spending. And I wonder if he should have just said nothing, in the sense that you can't match your needs as and when. There's got to be a lot of forward planning, hasn't there?
Well, yeah, that's the point. I mean, in one sense, he's right in that setting an arbitrary target of a GDP figure, in a sense, is not helpful. If you go back to my earlier point, assess the threat, what are we going to do about it, what resources do we need, and then we match the resources to enable us to deal with what we believe, you know, may be on the horizon. And as you say, of the three, in military parlance, of the three plans you put in place, it's always the fourth that happens. You know, you have to be prepared for the unexpected. Nobody expected Iraq to move into Kuwait back in 1990. I know British intelligence, for example, did say that the Russians were going to move into Ukraine, but an awful lot of people didn't believe that. So he's right in saying, don't set an arbitrary figure, deal with the world as it is and respond to it. But on the other hand, you're absolutely right in saying, you know, these things take time. You can't just ramp up defence equipment. You can't just train an army, in 3 to 6 months. We're training the Ukrainian army now in order to help them conduct counter-offensive operations probably next spring. So these things take time.
Yeah. Major General, good to talk to you as always. Thanks very much.
Okay.
And do stay with us. Yes, thank you. Do stay with us. We've got lots more to come, including our reporter is live from Heathrow Airport to tell us what sort of chaos is being caused by these cancelled plane seats during a bank holiday.
Well, let's have a look at the weather for you, and it's going to be a cloudy morning for Scotland with some rain, brighter elsewhere with sunny breaks. Here are the details.
Well, starting off in the southwest, and whilst there will be some higher level cloud, keeping the sunshine a little hazy, it will be mostly bright and a warm day.
It's a similar picture further east and around the capital. There'll be some warm sunny breaks in the cloud with highs in the mid-20s.
Then heading back westwards over to Wales, and here it will be mostly dry and often bright or sunny, with just a small chance of a shower.
In the Midlands, then, there'll be plenty of fine and bright weather, some warm, sunny breaks. Similarly to yesterday, there may be the odd shower around, but for most, it's going to stay pretty dry.
The same can be said for northeast England. Again, it will be mostly fine afternoon, but you can't rule out 1 or 2 showers, with temperatures peaking in the low 20s. Not bad.
Well, let's head to Scotland, where it's going to be a cloudy afternoon for much of the country. Towards the north and west, there'll be some rain, while southern parts have the best chance of some sunshine.
And a couple of sharp showers. It's interesting, sharp showers. They're likely in Northern Ireland, but it will not be as wet here, and there should still be some bright and sunny spells around.
So, some further rain for Scotland this evening. Any isolated showers will die out, leaving a dry night. And that's how your weather's looking today.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Back, you're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Yes, coming up, Stephanie Tetchy will be with us. She's got all the latest showbiz gossip, including J.K. Rowling speaking out, X Factor allegations, and Russell Brand upsetting his residents.
And Caroline Flack's close friends, family and colleagues are featuring in an upcoming special documentary about the making of what they're calling the Flackstock Festival. We'll be talking to a long-time friend of Caroline's just after 9.
Best county in Britain, Somerset, says Mary. Wonderful rolling Mendip Hills, the Cheddar Gorge and Glastonbury, of course.
Oh, Cheddar Gorge. Yeah. It's very nice round there. Bev says, I live in Cheshire. Beautiful green fields, countryside all around, but at least for now, because more and more housing estates are being built on Greenbelt land.
It's got to be built somewhere, I suppose. And Jamie in Leeds says, honestly, it's Yorkshire. From the Dales, the North York Moors and the Peak District to the East Coast and the cities of York, Leeds and Sheffield, it's culturally quite different from the rest of the country, and it has the grit and resilience that is becoming a very rare commodity these days. Lovely stuff.
Yeah, I can't remember that. Well, there was someone from talking about Cumbria earlier on. I can't find it.
You haven't had enough Cumbrian support.
No, someone at Ullswater.
Yeah.
There you go. Unless it was on my Twitter feed, I don't know.
Stephen needs a bit more support from Cumbria, please.
But
GBNews at gbnews.uk.
Someone sent a picture in about them doing their exercises on Ullswater, which is beautiful.
Oh, we'll have to look that up.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. Anyway, we should all maybe not wanting to get away so much and spend more time in good old Great Britain for our holidays, but many are hoping to get away over the bank holiday weekend. New warnings of disruption for those travelling.
I'm afraid an amber traffic warning has been issued by the AA due to the high levels of drivers on the roads. And if you're hoping to catch a last-minute flight for a quick getaway, then think again, because nearly 290,000 seats have been cut now from the bank holiday flight schedules.
Yeah, well, let's talk to our London reporter, Alice Porter, who's outside Heathrow, the UK's busiest airport. Morning, Alice. How's it looking today?
Good morning. Well, I have to say, it's so far so good. I've had a look at the departure boards and there are no new cancellations today, but that's partly because so many have been cancelled already. They've been cancelled preemptively. The aviation company Cirium, they said that about 900 flights that were due to depart from UK airports between Friday all the way through Tuesday were cancelled earlier this month. And that's part of a wider sort of problem we're really seeing in the aviation industry. Earlier this month, British Airways said they've cancelled all short-haul flights. That's partly because Heathrow behind me, as you were saying there, usually the UK's busiest airport, has actually put a cap on the number of passengers that would be coming in and out of the airport each day. So they've got a cap all the way through until October of no more than 100,000 people coming in and out each day. And if you're watching this thinking, why on earth would you be capping passenger numbers at the busiest time in the year for people to get away? It's because there's been a shortage of staff, a shortage of baggage handlers. And that's why we saw these very chaotic scenes over the last few months, some sort of quite dramatic photos and footage that we saw of bags piling up, of people having flights sort of cancelled last minute, huge delays. So I think very much the airlines are trying to kind of get that back under control and have a fewer number of flights that they can manage more carefully. But I have to say, I actually flew into Heathrow just under a week ago, and while the flight was fine, it took a long time for the baggage to arrive. We were waiting around quite a while, so I still think there's quite a long way to go in trying to get the airports running a little bit more smoothly. And of course, these airlines are wanting to get passengers back after COVID, and airports are wanting to get people to kind of flying at their peak time. So it's bad news for business. And I think an indication of how we're seeing this affecting the airports is there's a recent study by the RAC that says that around 2/3 of airports in the UK have had to bump up their fees for people who are being dropped off, including Heathrow. And I think it gives an indication there of some of the financial troubles that some of the airports are finding themselves in. But of course, that's quite frustrating for passengers, particularly those who want to get a quick getaway over the bank holiday weekends.
There's no such thing as a quick getaway at the moment, because if you choose to go to one of our lovely counties in Great Britain, you're going to have trouble on the roads as well, because we've heard that from the AA. Amber warning.
Yeah, I know, it's not good news. I mean, it's good, I guess, that everyone's kind of getting back on their feet after the pandemic. There's about 15 million people that are expected to take to the roads this weekend, going out and about. And why wouldn't you? I mean, to the west of me, we've got Reading Festival that's been going on this weekend, Notting Hill Carnival, of course. So there's going to be a huge amount of traffic on the roads. And I think the particular concern in London is from today, there's a 2-day bus strike that's affecting 1,600 bus drivers in London. So that's going to have a huge impact kept on the roads. And of course, if you want to be taking the train, you think, the roads sound a bit chaotic, I'm worried about that amber warning, I'm going to get the train instead. There's a number of engineering works that are taking place today, including London, Hastings, Ashford International. So I think it's really important. There's lots of exciting things going on this bank holiday weekend, but please do very much check before you travel.
OK, Alice, thank you very much indeed. Catch up with you a little bit later on. Talking about getting out and about in the car, loads of people getting in touch about electric cars.
Oh.
Some very pro, some not so pro. Brian says he runs an electric car. He's had it a month. It's cost him £6.50 using his local lamppost charger. Whatever that is. Don't know what that is, Brian.
Charger next to a lamppost?
Well, I presume so.
Using the same electricity supply.
Plug it
into the lamppost.
Plug it into the lamppost.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All the people around are complaining that there's no street lighting.
Yeah. My average mileage, he says, is 150 a month. So very low mileage. That's a nice thing. So you'd be all right on that. Talking about batteries, Mike says, read the batteries. They're guaranteed for 8 years. How many people keep a car for 8 years these days?
Oh, I do. I believe in keeping the car until it sort of dies.
I tell you what put me off partly. I was talking to some people at a very big car manufacturer, a very well-known one, because they just launched this new electric car, and it had a range of something like 350 miles.
Yeah.
Which I thought, well, actually, that's pretty
sounds good. Yeah.
And the woman in charge of it all, head of the PR, said to me, yeah, it's great. It's not going to be good for you heading up north and things because that range doesn't last long. Because the battery deteriorates. So actually, by the time you've run it for 6 months, you're only going to get a couple of hundred miles.
That's worth knowing, isn't it? Yeah. Philip says, morning, Philip. I live in Germany and I drive a diesel Jaguar. On a full tank, I can get nearly 900 kilometres. I borrowed my son's Tesla Model X for a few months. Fully charged, it was less than 400 kilometre range. We often go for days skiing, which can be 300 kilometre round trip. I live in a flat, so I don't have a home charger, and I had to park it on the street. In the winter, when the temperature dropped to freezing, the Tesla lost 5% charge a day, just sitting there parked. So you end up paying for electricity and then throwing it away.
Yeah.
That's interesting about the battery, though.
Yeah.
You hear all sorts of stories about batteries and cars.
The battery technology needs to improve a little bit. David in Lincolnshire says, I can't wait to see Teslas and electric cars in the icy weather and snow. They won't be driving them because they're too light.
Are they light?
Well, yeah, they've no engine, have they? They've just got an electric motor. So there's nothing under the bonnet at all.
Nothing?
No, the bonnet's totally empty, yeah.
Well, where's the actual engine? Where's the bit that drives the wheels?
Well, it's just the motor underneath. It's just the...
So it's really... So you've got extra luggage space, have you, under the bonnet?
No, they tend just to be sealed off. You can't access them.
How interesting.
Well, in some cars. Maybe they do in other cars. You can lift the bonnet and use it. But no, in most of them, they're just sealed off. Oh. So, but yeah, I never thought of that. It's a good point. They've got to deal with it.
They must have thought of that, surely.
Meanwhile, Kevin says charging an electric car is free at Tesco's. Apparently.
Sheila says, coming back from Southport a couple of weeks ago, we were stuck in a 2-hour traffic jam with the temperature at 32 degrees. It was caused by an electric car having a flat battery in the middle of roadworks. When they have flat batteries, you can't push them.
No, I don't suppose you can. You can't sort of disengage it. You can't put it in neutral, can you?
Why not?
I don't know.
Oh, this is fascinating stuff.
Well, they don't have gears. Do they? They literally
They're
don't have gears.
They're automatic.
They're not automatic. No, they literally don't have gears, so they just go like an electric motor. Just gets faster.
I don't understand, but we are going to have to look into this.
Yeah, it's why they accelerate very quickly, because they don't have gears. It's just the motor literally gets faster.
Wow, I don't even know how to think about that.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's interesting. We'll have to find out more for you.
Anyway, we've got lots more to come for you, including plenty of showbiz with our Stephanie.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, Talking Pints over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farrow.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Tight for time, just very quickly want to say hello to Andy. Says, hi, Stephen and Anne. Could you say happy anniversary to my wife? It's our first anniversary today. We love your show. Hope you love each other more. Her name is Tony Rhodes. It would make her day.
Happy anniversary to Andy and Tony. Yeah,
lovely,
great.
lovely, lovely. Let's go through the papers then. Former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall and broadcaster David Hamilton. Welcome both.
Yeah.
Let's talk politics, leadership battle in the Telegraph, Sunday Telegraph, Claire.
Yeah, this is the moment that Rishi's campaign team knew that he'd lost, and this was quite early on, at the beginning of August, during a leadership hustings in Eastbourne, where the team noticed that he had said the word California for the third time in under 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it goes back to his youth when he worked out on the West Coast in tech and entrepreneur businesses and was using that as an example of what motivated him and what he saw and what he wanted for the country was that kind of energy and entrepreneurship. But of course, people have taken it badly and looked at it and said, you are out of touch with people, you're out of touch with the United Kingdom, and then it all brings up nom-dom status of his wife and his tax affairs. So, I mean, if they're pinpointing it as early as that, August the 5th, it kind of begs the question, what were the campaign team doing in the interim to stop that decline from happening?
And does he still believe that he can do it now?
I think you always have to have the belief that you can do it. Otherwise, you wouldn't, A, be in politics, and B, you wouldn't put yourself forward to become leader. So I do think that he thinks that. The polls will tell a different story, but you have to still go out there thinking that you are the best chance, because what's the point in doing it otherwise?
Well, and you could ask that as well. If he's still thinking in his mind, California, maybe that's where I ought to be going, why is he wasting our time?
I wonder quite how long he'll hang around afterwards. If he's not successful and if he doesn't take a cabinet position or doesn't get offered one, I do wonder how long you would sit around on the back benches. Once you've been Chancellor of the Exchequer and you've been a leadership candidate, do you want to go back onto the back benches and be told that you are voting at 10 o'clock tonight and you will vote this way and do as you're told? I'm not sure that he will. And I wouldn't blame him in some respects.
Really? If he was serving the country, if he was a public servant, maybe he would do it. Margaret Thatcher did that.
Well, Theresa May has...
Theresa May's still doing it.
Still does. And I think it does depend on what your main focus of being in politics is. Is it to help your constituents, the people that voted you in? Is it to look after their problems? Or is it because your ambition tells you that you can be a cabinet minister and you can have all that power? I think those are very interesting questions for politicians, and the answers will vary depending on who you speak to.
I think the problem is that they're all out of touch with the public, aren't they? I mean, he's such a wealthy man. He can't appreciate what the winter is going to be like for the rest of us. And I think they're all so far removed from, real life. Once they go into politics, they seem to, lose track of how the rest of us live. So I'm quite honestly, I mean, I look at this business that's going on now, this race to be the next Prime Minister, and I think who would have it? Who would have the job? There's so many problems. And quite honestly, the chances of this government being voted back in again, I would have thought absolute zero.
Well, indeed, we had a poll commissioned done on Friday that said that more and more people think Keir Starmer is going to be and should be the next Prime Minister.
Well, the thing is,
people who've voted Tory all their life are just fed up.
The thing is, Anne, they've had the worst time that anybody could have. They had the pandemic, they've had Putin's war, they've had the virtual collapse of the NHS, the ineffective policing that's going on now. All these things have happened at the same time. And who do we all blame? The government. Because if we don't blame the government, who else do we blame? So they're getting the stick for everything, really. But quite honestly, in my long life, I've never seen this country in such a mess as it is now. Almost nothing works, does it? Unfortunately.
Well, we were talking earlier about going back to the 70s when we had a 3-day week and no electricity at all and rubbish piling high in the streets and we had to bring the army in. You wouldn't be able to do that now because there aren't enough of them.
No.
Learning today.
Not enough troops.
To bring the army, we had to bring the troops in to clear the rubbish. It was
But we got through it, though, didn't we?
We did.
That's a point worth making, is that, tough though it was, we got through it and we will get through it again.
But were we made of sterner stuff then than we are now?
Oh, well.
I do think that is part of the argument, is that we have everything sort of given to us and we've allowed ourselves to become a consumerist nation much more than we were then. And once that's taken away, we all feel really hard done by and feel that we're being left by the wayside. But actually, maybe we do need a little bit more of the stiff upper lip.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Meanwhile, Mail on Sunday, David, impartiality in Ms Emily Maitlis.
Yes, Cabinet Ministers are planning to boycott Emily Maitlis's podcast after she implied that the BBC is right-wing. David Dimbleby has denied that there is a cabal of Tory supporters at the top of the BBC. The thing is, I would have thought, actually, if anything, I would have thought the BBC was left-wing.
Yeah.
Well, that's... But people always have a view of the BBC, and it depends on their standpoint. They accuse the BBC of being too lefty, and then some say it's right. But if the right is more unusual.
I think years ago, when I was working a lot for the BBC, it was regarded as the best purveyor of news, particularly the World Service, and as being completely impartial. I don't feel that it is now. Very often, you have a Tory spokesman who is given about 15 seconds to say something, and then an opposition spokesman who's given half a minute or more to shoot it all down in flames.
Might be because they're more interesting.
I wouldn't be too sure of that.
No. I have to say, I would have tagged the BBC as more left-leaning on some of its shows.
Yeah.
No, not all necessarily.
No, not all.
Yeah.
Now, we were talking about this a little bit earlier on. This is looking at the Mirror's version of this, Claire. What it's costing us to do everyday things.
Yes. And Sunday things, like the Sunday roast.
This is it, the Sunday roast. A great institution that we all absolutely love. But as we were talking about with turning on your oven and the costs of cooking, this, a Christmas dinner, for argument's sake, with Christmas not being that far away, could cost £10 just to cook. The price of vegetables has gone through the roof. The price of meat is now very high. The cost of electricity is going to be very high. I mean, it's just gobsmacking that it can have gone up so much in such little time.
If somebody at home right now is preparing the Sunday roast, slathering the fat or the butter or whatever it is, the goose fat you put on a turkey. I'm a vegetarian, so I don't know. And you've got it in a big thing and you're going to put it in the oven. How much is it going to cost to cook a whacking great chicken or turkey or something?
Well, I mean, this is all sort of in the cost here. It says £10, and it's quite hard to sort of to even it out. But it's increased by at least £5 on last year. And I do think the cost of meat, I mean, like you, I don't eat meat either, but I buy it for the family. And I've watched the price of things like lamb and chicken go up enormously. What is upsetting is that the farmers don't get the majority of that cost. The cost of a lamb to a farmer, you know, they're making a loss on this. So it is sort of one of these very interesting things that we take for granted are now going to cost us a lot more money. But I do wonder how much of it is scaremongering. And you start talking about the cost of Christmas dinner when it's August. Actually, is it going to be that bad? Because if you're feeding a family of 4, 5, 6 people for Christmas, then that cost is going to be spread out. So I think it's a little bit of an extreme example.
Yes, you have to do the Jamie Oliver thing as well, about bunging everything in the oven. No, I mean, if you're putting in the turkey or whatever, you also do vegetables by doing them in the oven and using the oven. If you're going to heat up the oven,
you may as well use it for everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's right. And, you know, but I do want our farmers to get a much better deal. And I think, you know, if we're going to have to pay the extra cost of this, then we need to support our farming industry because it's going to be what's going to keep us going over the next few years.
Are you going home to a Sunday roast with Mrs H?
I think we're having a chicken today, as a matter of fact, yes. Yes, I think so.
So, are you still a traditional Sunday roast type?
Yes, we very often have a roast lunch on Sunday.
I love a roast.
Not always at this time of the year. Might maybe have a salad or something. But yes, very traditional, really. And we usually have fish and chips on Friday. Have I got time very quickly to mention Nigel Nelson? Because I believe that he is... Nigel Nelson is, I believe, somebody who is known in this parish. But he's monopolising the Sunday Mirror today. He has not one, not two, but 3 articles on page 2. That is 3 bylines.
Well, he's got a lot to say. Maybe he's
got
not
a lot to say.
At home.
Yeah, lucky the wife's working as well, isn't it? But listen, his main story is 100 million top 10 fat cats. And there are big chiefs whose wages have soared by 39%. Britain's top 10 fat cats rate in between them more than £100 million. And here is the number 1, if I can pronounce his name right, Sébastien de Moncessus. He is of the metals and mining giant Endeavour. And guess what his wages are? Have a quick guess. 15.5 million a year. So when all the rest of us are wondering, you know, do we heat or eat and how are we going to get through winter?
And don't you think that's why there is more public sympathy at the moment for some of the strikers than there ever used to be?
Yeah.
Because what the strikers are doing is pointing out the disparity between the people at the top who are getting a fortune and the people, you know, and the workers.
The gap has got far too big. And what about the water? The people running the water companies and the shareholders who are making all this money, and apparently it hasn't been a reservoir built for, is it 25 years or something? 40 years now. Where I am in Sussex, very often floods, and I would love to know what happens to all that water. Why is it not preserved for the use of people?
Yeah, because we don't have the storage facilities as a reservoir.
Yeah, there's no reservoir, so we get all the worst of the floods, all that wasted water, and then these people are earning this kind of money.
Are any of those fat cats in charge of water companies?
I don't know. I did look through them all. I didn't find a water company, but I reckon they won't be far off this.
No, they won't.
They'll be definitely in that league.
I mean, I don't. You know what? I don't disagree with people earning a lot of money if you're running a huge corporation. I don't have a problem with that. I don't do the politics of envy. But what I do have an issue with is when they're getting things like 39% pay rises. You know, huge pay rises when other people aren't getting pay rises.
And also if they're not doing a particularly good job with their company.
And the NHS. What about the NHS, where you've got, you know, overloaded with executives and people earning a fortune, and then the nurses, the nursing staff
are not clearly
underpaid. It's all wrong, isn't it?
It is, and that's what makes people angry.
I'm going to get a soapbox and take it off to Hyde Park.
Oh, you do very well. You get just very briefly, Claire, we've got 30 seconds. Lamborghini.
This is a lamb that has been sold for more than the cost of a Lamborghini Huracan. This is a ram lamb in Wales, and it is sold for £168,000.
Why?
It is a very good breed of lamb. It is a particularly fine example, but it's, you know, it's just gobsmacking that this particular lamb can be sold to be bred. And you just think, and then for the price of meat to be so low, I just don't understand the sort of disparity between that. But to put it next to, you know, a Lamborghini Huracan, I think I'd rather have the lamb, in all fairness, because it is beautiful.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously very efficient as a ram, isn't it?
I would say so.
It's good at what it does.
Yeah.
Indeed. But it's
any of us who watch Jeremy Clarkson's farm programme understand that there are rams that can deliver and there are rams that can't.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm very glad at that point we're getting David Hamilton out. It's been good to see you both. Thank you very much. Stay with us. We've got some gladiators heading your way in the next hour. Wolf and Rhino are coming to join us very soon.
Are you ready for that?
Well, let's have a look at the weather for you, and it's going to be a cloudy morning for Scotland with some rain, brighter elsewhere with sunny breaks. Here are the details.
Well, starting off in the southwest, and whilst there will be some higher level cloud, keeping the sunshine a little hazy, it will be mostly bright and a warm day.
It's a similar picture further east and around the capital. There'll be some warm sunny breaks in the cloud with highs in the mid-20s.
Then heading back westwards over to Wales, and here it will be mostly dry and often bright or sunny, with just a small chance of a shower.
In the Midlands, then, there'll be plenty of fine and bright weather, some warm, sunny breaks. Similarly to yesterday, there may be the odd shower around, but for most, it's going to stay pretty dry.
The same can be said for northeast England. Again, it will be mostly fine afternoon, but you can't rule out one or two showers, with temperatures peaking in the low 20s. Not bad.
Well, let's head to Scotland, where it's going to be a cloudy afternoon for much of the country. Towards the north and west, there'll be some rain, while southern parts have the best chance of some sunshine.
And a couple of sharp showers. It's interesting, sharp showers. They're likely in Northern Ireland, but it will not be as wet here, and there should still be some bright and sunny spells around.
So, some further rain for Scotland this evening. Any isolated showers will die out, leaving a dry night. And that's how your weather's looking today.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
In just over a week, we'll have a new Prime Minister. But as we enter the final 7 days of campaigning, have Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak done enough to win the top job?
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock on Sunday, the 28th of August. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
We're live across the whole of the UK, the length and breadth of our great nation, on your TV, your radio and online. So wherever you are, you can take us with you.
Here are your top stories this morning. The last full week of campaigning to persuade the Tory faithful that they should be the next Prime Minister. Should we expect any last-minute pledges from either candidate?
Well, it's being reported that Liz Truss is considering a 5% VAT cut to help with rising bills. But is this something you would welcome? It probably is. Is it a sensible way, though, out of the cost of living crisis? Let us know what you think. GB Views at gbnews.uk.
And gladiators, are you ready? Everyone on their marks and get ready for the brand new series of the popular show from the 90s. We're going to be joined by former gladiator Wolf and also Rhino.
Yes, Rhino as well, hopefully. The Wolf is in New Zealand, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's doing
Can still
there.
come on GB Views. News.
Yeah,
whatever.
GB Views. Yeah, we're talking of GB Views. If you want to email us, that's the address. gbviews at gbnews.uk. Talking of the emails, I'm intrigued by Darren. Morning, Darren, who says, waking up and watching your amazing show from Newton in Cumbria this morning, spending a few days up here as my wife's family live here. Are you talking Newton in Furness? No, that's not the picture. No, we haven't got to the pictures yet.
Wait. Where you told your horses?
So if that's Newton in Furness, which is the village where I grew up and which I go back to a long lot, which is a tiny village, it's about 200 people.
Oh,
so it's tiny.
It probably is the same place.
Probably is, unless High Newton, maybe it would be different. But if it just says Newton, it's probably Newton in Furness.
Well, we're asking about best counties, and Paul in Israel says, I'm from Cumbria. I grew up on a farm and loved walking down by the river at the bottom of our land. Cumbria is a wonderful place. Carlisle is beautiful and historic.
David says the Pearl of the Eden Valley in Cumbria is Appleby in Westmoreland. Beautiful tree-lined Main Street, picturesque cricket pitch in the curve of the river. Super for 51 weeks of the year. I was on the 52nd.
Yeah, what happens? Thank you very much. You've been sending in some lovely photographs as well of best places in best counties in Britain. Jen says it's definitely Cumbria.
Oh, hey.
My photo
look at that.
is of my SUP fitness session on Ullswater yesterday. Oh, look at that. Yes, I see. Why would I need to go anywhere else, she says.
That's beautiful. Ullswater is very, very deep, you know. I think it might be the deepest water in the Lake
famous,
District.
Isn't it? But that's a wonderful photograph.
Gorgeous, gorgeous shot. Love that. Steve says, here's a picture of Lincolnshire at its best with our pet.
Oh, that is such a sensational photograph. If you're listening on the radio, you're missing out at the moment, but it's of one of those enormous hay bales.
Big round ones.
Yeah, with a big dog sitting on the top.
Yes, sort of almost silhouetted. Absolutely
gorgeous, yeah. Michelle from Liverpool says, I'm just visiting, but this is one of our favourite counties, Cornwall. Photo taken... Oh, it's a sensational photograph. Look at it. It was taken yesterday at Porthcathno Beach. Absolutely stunning.
It does look like... It looks... I mean, the sort of wave on the beach and sun in the background, it could be something that you see on one of those... Remember Athena, the old poster shops?
Yes, holiday poster sort of thing, yes.
Yeah.
That is absolutely sumptuous.
Wow. Trish says, this is the view from our window, which is, I mean, it's the sunrise to die for,
It looks like it's blazing across the sky.
Yeah, it's Haskane Village in Lancashire. Best place, we've lived here for 51 years.
Well, no wonder, because it looks gorgeous.
That's absolutely lovely.
And Linda has sent in a photograph. She said, I moved to the best county 17 years ago, Cornwall. Fabulous coastline. This picture is of that fabulous coastline. Beaches, inland moors, historic castles, and Iron Age forts, of course.
Lovely. Martin says, please find attached a beautiful image, and it is beautiful, of Stackpole Beach in Pembrokeshire near Haverfordwest. And the water is just turquoise, absolutely beautiful.
It looks like a private beach.
It does. I took this photo recently on our coastal path walk around Wales. Absolutely stunning. It does go to show you, and I know we all get a bit competitive over our favourite counties, it just goes to show you that wherever you go in the UK, there are beautiful places to be found.
There really are. And I know that, we moaned and groaned about the heat wave getting too hot or whatever a few weeks ago. Seems a long time ago now, doesn't it? But it did give us the chance to actually show off some of the beautiful landscapes, which sometimes you don't appreciate when it's cold and windy.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean, Britain at its best is Britain under the sun, isn't it?
Yes, I tend to think so. Though I'm a big fan of autumn.
Yeah.
I like autumn. I do like the sort of brown, crunchy leaves and all that sort of
Oh, and we had somebody calling in with saying, hang on a minute, have you got nobody contributing from up north? Because, I'll have to find it. She was saying, what about places like the Orkneys and things like that, which I was in just a couple of weeks ago. And
Were
again,
you?
Unbelievably beautiful. Looking at the stone circles there.
Oh,
on the
wow.
Oh, absolutely stunning. Yeah.
I would love to go to the Orkney Isles. I would absolutely
You
love
have to take an anorak.
Yeah.
Even in summer. But it was sensational. I'll find this in a minute.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. I remember my brother went up donkeys years ago and brought me back a very nice bottle of, I think it was Islay Scotch.
Oh, yeah.
Which was my drinking days. I remember that. He went fishing and caught huge mackerel.
Yes, there are a lot of breweries, not what they're distilleries.
Distilleries.
Yes, in that area. But maybe that's why, because it's usually
so cold. Something to warm you up.
Yeah, but stunning, wonderful.
Lovely. We need to get out on a tour.
Yeah, we do. Yes.
Around the country. Anyway, there you go. That's something to look forward to, or to look towards after this next week.
Let me know who the Prime Minister is.
Yes,
That'd be
we
nice.
should know.
Yeah.
Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss are battling it out for the last remaining votes. We don't know how many people have voted already yet. Has anyone done enough, though? Well, somebody must have done.
Well, one of them will. Both candidates have made plenty of promises to entice voters, but we are now fast approaching the time where they'll have to deliver on them.
Now, what about last-minute pledges, then? Well, the Sunday Telegraph saying Liz Truss is considering a 5% cut in VAT to help with fuel bills.
Earlier, we spoke to the political journalist David Wooding about the last week of campaigning, and we asked him why we're not hearing anything, it seems, from Rishi.
Rishi is busy going around the country. This final lap of the leadership race has split into two distinct campaigns. Liz Truss is busy telling us what she's going to do to win over the public ahead of an election in 2 years' time. Also trying to get MPs on side with her, because don't forget, Rishi Sunak was more popular among the parliamentary party than Liz Truss. So that's why you're seeing those last-minute defections. On the other hand, Rishi Sunak knows that he's behind among the voters, and he's trying to sweep up those last-minute votes and is touring the country trying to get every little vote he can. That's his only hope of getting into number 10.
But, I mean, that in itself is interesting, isn't it? Because it means Liz Truss is already trying to garner public support, which is ultimately what matters if they're going to win the next general election.
Yes, I did have some fears for Liz Truss that she's given so many promises and pledges in order to win the party crown and the keys to number 10. Will she have anything left to give away in 2 years' time?
It's interesting because when we did our poll, when was it, Friday morning?
Friday morning, yes.
Friday morning. And when we were asking people, what is the word that most springs to mind when you think of Liz Truss? The word that came up top was untrustworthy. And you can only presume that's because she appears to have flip-flopped and changed her mind about things. So perhaps it isn't all sewn up.
Well, that was a thing which some of the MPs who didn't back Liz Truss were saying to me in the earlier months. Well, she'll be found out during a leadership campaign. She'll drop a gaffe, and that was the one thing I think Rishi Sunak was pinning his hopes on, was that she would implode. Now, there was one moment where she made this pledge to have regional pay boards, which would have meant massive pay cuts for teachers, police officers and other public servants. But she made a very swift U-turn on that, which saved her skin in many ways.
Well, she's also U-turned on the idea of handouts, what she calls handouts, doesn't she? She said there will be no handouts, and already she's thinking of an acceptable way to do it.
Well, realistically, she has to do some handouts. And this VAT cut today, that will cost £3.2 billion, but it will knock £1,300 off the average outgoings for a house, an average household in Britain.
So, I mean, what's she proposing? Is it cut off VAT on everything, or cut on VAT on fuel? Or
what it seems to be, well, there was a talk of a 5 percentage point cut on fuel, but now the word is it's going to be between 2.5% and 5% across the board. So that would cut everything from everything you buy. So
and it would be fast, wouldn't it?
It would be fast, and it would hit everybody's pockets immediately.
Yeah, I mean, she's still got a lot of work to do. I mean, on the basis that she walks into number 10, which we're expecting now, I mean, she's got to hit the ground running on this, hasn't she? There's no time to waste, because if she takes her time over anything to do with the cost of living crisis, she's going to be absolutely hung, drawn and quartered.
Well, there are multiple problems facing the next Prime Minister. We've got the war in Ukraine, we've got the unions are all restless, we have rail strikes and so forth. We've also got cost of living rocketing, energy, not only the energy price crisis, the cost of energy, it's the supply of energy, which is a big problem. All these things have got to be fixed, and these are things which should have been fixed decades ago. So not only has she got to look on the long term, but she's got to get some very quick hits. Don't forget there's also the migration crisis. There's all these issues which nobody's been able to deal with, and they've got to, she's got to find some results very quickly.
Is she tough enough to do that? I mean, she comes across as being quite tough in many ways.
Yes, I mean, some of the older hands in Westminster have told me that they remember Margaret Thatcher coming in, and she was a screechy woman with a cardigan on, and they made her over. She lowered her voice, and she showed she had a lot of mettle in her. And like her or loathe her, she won 3 elections and tackled some of the problems, inflation being one of them, which we now face. And there was a war going on very soon.
It does make you wonder who on earth would want to be Prime Minister at the moment. You've just laid out all of the problems that need solutions, and they need it fast, because there will be an election as well to face. So, I mean, do you have to be breathtakingly arrogant to be Prime Minister?
Well, poison chalice doesn't begin to cover it. And in fact, what you say, Anne, is correct. The last few Prime Ministers have had this. I mean, David Cameron...
Maybe you need it.
Well, I don't know.
You've got to have self-belief just to think you can tackle the job.
Well, yes. You cannot choose the moment that you become Prime Minister. Everybody would like a level playing field where things to be easy. Theresa May inherited the Brexit mess as it was then. And then Boris Johnson came in at a time when we had a pandemic, which was unfortunate for him. So Liz Truss is just going to have to take what's on the table and deal with it.
And what will happen to Rishi if he does lose? Where will he go, do you think?
Well, there were suggestions he would serve, and now it looks to me like he won't. I would suggest... if Liz Truss wants to be diplomatic, she'll offer him a job like health, and he'll...
Yeah, but he's been Chancellor.
No, he's not going to want it.
I mean, that's the trouble with the fact that he was Chancellor once. The only promotion, really, from that is either sort of Deputy Prime Minister, which isn't really, is it, or Prime Minister.
Foreign Secretary, perhaps, but I think that job's already...
Do you think he's out the Commons?
Taken. Well, I think he may hang around until the next election and then go. I mean, in his leadership election campaign, he once or twice mentioned California. Not saying he was going to go there, but what a great place it was, and the entrepreneurial spirit he witnessed when he was out there.
And they'd love him there, wouldn't they?
So maybe that's what he'll do.
He should have hung on to that green card, shouldn't he?
Not a bad idea.
No, there you go. Dear. David, good to talk to you. Thank you. Pleasure. Yeah, I don't know whether it's going to be an interesting week with all of that, or a very dull one.
Yes. What will any of them do in the final few days?
How exciting will the announcement be when it comes?
Very exciting. Edge of the seat. I sort of don't think.
Well, it'll be Graham Brady stood up in the committee room, whatever it is.
And how does Boris Johnson spend the next week? Have they already moved all the furniture out and everything?
Oh yeah, I don't know.
They stripped the expensive wallpaper off the walls and taken it with them.
Yes, that cost a fortune.
Yeah, I'd take it with me. Steam it off.
It's not theirs to take. They didn't pay for it, did they?
Well, no, they did in the end, didn't they? They had to.
I thought they got a donor or something. Blooming awful looking stuff if you ever see it.
Yes, absolutely, but terribly, terribly expensive.
Yeah, there you go.
OK, well, we'll move on. It's just coming up to 9:15. Now, 2.5 years on from her sad death in February 2020, Caroline Flack's loved ones will feature in a documentary detailing the making of what they're calling the Flackstock Festival.
Now, the event was held last month at Englefield House. It set out to raise awareness of mental health issues and to honour the star's legacy. Amongst others, Ronan Keating and Professor Green were in the lineup.
We're joined now by Anna Blue, who's organiser of Flackstock Festival and Caroline's friend for well over 17 years. Joining us now. Hello there, thanks for joining us. So,
hello, how are you?
We're very well, and you look well too. The Flackstock Festival was, well, describe what it was actually, since it's already happened and we're going to see it on the telly.
It was an event really designed firstly to celebrate Caroline and secondly to raise awareness and money for some really amazing mental health charities. It was as simple as that really, and it ended up being a great day.
Was there a lot of support for it? Because we've got some big names are on the lineup. I mean, is that, you know, as much for the mental health issue as it was for Caroline herself?
I think most of them, I think it was probably 50-50 for all of them. They were all people who had been close to Caroline or had known her. There's Ollie. They were all there because they really believed, I think, in the message that we were trying to give, which was just that, you know, mental health is often not talked about enough, and particularly suicide. And they were all there to say that it was all right to be open about these things and to talk about Caroline in a way that I think had been difficult for a lot of us for a long time.
I mean, the reaction is sort of there on two levels, isn't it? It's you knew her well, people who have known her, but also it's about the obvious strength of feeling about the fact that we need to talk about mental health issues more openly.
Yeah, we do, and I think it's for everybody. It wasn't. We needed a different end. Caroline was such an incredible person. We'd been left with a very difficult end for her in lots of ways, and everybody just wanted to put a different full stop on it, I think, and say we loved her, and she was just the most incredible, vibrant, joyous person, and the elephant in the room became the way her life ended, and nobody wanted that to be her legacy, that it should be something else instead. And she was very, very close to these charities, and doing something for them in her name, I think, was the perfect way to say goodbye.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's saying goodbye on as you say, on a very positive note, rather than the huge questioning over. I mean, suicide is a very difficult death for those left behind, isn't it? Because it leaves so many unanswered questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also it just happened at a time when we weren't able to get together. Everyone was in lockdown very quickly after her funeral, and she had an awful lot of friends. I mean, an incredible amount of friends, which is testament to really the sort of person that she was. And they all wanted to get together. I mean, none of us really knew each other before we put this on. we were all just linked up and came together with the same idea, that was that if we tried, we might be able to create something which was basically a very good day out for a lot of people who wanted to be a bit more open about mental health.
Yeah, and you have created a positive legacy. You really have. She'd be very proud of you, I think. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, really good to talk to you, Anna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's celebrate. I'm a great believer in celebrating life.
Yes, and remembering somebody for their life more than their death.
Yeah.
I think that's terribly important. You have to keep reminding yourself of things like that. But being able to create a legacy whereby young people and those who admired her can actually feel they can talk about it, because very clearly it needs to be discussed openly, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And positive outcomes have to be held.
They do. Look, don't go anywhere. We've got lots coming up for you in a couple of minutes. We were going to have a look at the weather, but apparently not. So stay with us, and I'll tell you what we're doing later on, because we're talking to a couple of gladiators, so you don't want to miss that.
Yeah, they're bringing back the gladiator show with obviously a whole new generation, I presume, of gladiators. What sort of gladiators will they be like? Well, we'll be meeting two of the old uns.
The old ones, yeah.
Exactly. So stay with us.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
"9:22, morning to you. We're talking electric cars a lot today. Jeremy in Lincolnshire, because I mentioned about a car losing its battery capacity very quickly. Jeremy in Lincolnshire said, range loss from 350 to 200 miles in 6 months is not true. The car may learn the driver's habits and reduce predicted range on that basis.
The car learns a driver's habits?
Yeah, but I mean, that's only what I was told by the company that makes the cars.
Oh.
So, you know, I mean, I've never driven one, so, but that's what they told me, Jeremy. So, I mean, maybe you're right. I mean, I hope you're right. But there you go.
We've been talking about your favourite counties all morning.
Yeah. Got more.
And Jonathan says Devon is the county in the world. Come to Plymouth where you can see the sound and hear the band. Love that. We're going to cross, actually, to Devon any minute now.
Oh, are we?
Yeah. Yeah, because we've got a royal commentator waiting to join us.
Oh, I wonder who that may be. Now, Prince Harry has shared his hopes for the upcoming 25th anniversary of the death of his mother. He said he hoped for a day filled with memories of her incredible work. Again, looking at positive legacy.
Yes, trying to turn
we're
it
just
into a
talking
positive.
about. So let's have our royal commentator, should we?
Yes, I think so. Can you think of one who lives in Devon? Jenny Bond. Hello, Jenny. Hi.
Hi there. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Very well. If you look through the papers, I don't know if you've had a chance to yet, but it's been true of the last week or so. Princess Diana's face on all of them at the moment. She still sells newspapers, clearly.
Yeah, well, it's a big deal, isn't it? The 25th anniversary. I'm sure you, Anne, and I remember exactly where we were and what we were doing that day when her death was announced. And her legacy has continued, I think markedly so these days in her boys. I think that's her true legacy. And I think when we see William and Harry out and about doing their very different things, both of them remind me so much of various aspects of Diana's life and her work. And I think that's one reason that her light burns so brightly still.
So with Harry, though, I mean, there's an issue there with Harry, isn't there? In that what he's doing at the moment would worry Diana, surely.
I think she'd be absolutely distraught that the two boys are still feuding, but I think Harry is very much the Spencer of the two of them, and William is the Windsor, if you like. And Harry is fiery, he is impetuous, he is vulnerable, he is fragile, very much in the way that Diana was. He's complex in the way that Diana, whom I knew, was a very complex woman, absolutely likeable, lovable, but difficult. And so he's forging his own way in much the same way as his mother did. But yeah, he is the troubled one of the two. And the fact that he's going to bring out his memoir shortly, we believe, is hanging like a sort of Damocles over the whole family and stopping the two brothers, I think, from interacting in any meaningful way or indeed at all.
Yes, if she were still around, hopefully she would have avoided that whole problem, but you never know, do you? It's incredible, though, the way we
Anne? I think so. I think she would have. She would have just sorted them out somehow, and I don't think this feud would have happened or got so bad.
No, and she would have made it plain that it was upsetting her, and maybe that would have stopped it before it really started. Yeah. But, I mean, we've just been hearing headlines about a car that she drove. For heaven's sake, a Ford Escort that she drove in the 80s has just sold for £650,000, obviously simply because of its link to her. Society generally is still absolutely dedicated to her memory.
Yes, anything to do with Diana still sells. I do quite a lot of work around auctions and selling things, and they still have a huge price. So that car, which she drove, I think, in the 80s, wasn't it? I think it's a pretty special Ford Escort, but it is the association with Diana that has made it reach this astronomical sum. But look back at her dresses. You know, I went to the auction of dresses at Christie's in New York, and that, all in all, raised $6 million for her charities. I mean, she was. She told me once, actually, that she hated all the galas and the glamour, really, but what she really got a kick out was the fact that she said, in a night, I can raise $1 million and give it to charity. And that's what I really love doing.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
And she wears, the mask and everything, and to talk about landmines, and actually, walked in that sort of area and that iconic picture, and that had that sort of effect as well. Her association with anything could just turn on the interest, couldn't it?
The interest and the influence and the change in public attitudes. I was with her in, I think it was Calcutta, when she touched a person suffering from leprosy. She changed people's attitudes about that. As we know, she changed people's attitudes about HIV/AIDS by hugging and talking to them, shaking their hands. And then with the landmines, yes, I was there in Angola when she walked through that minefield, and she took a lot of flack, figuratively, from the government she was described as a loose cannon for doing that and siding with Labour. This confused her very much. I challenged her about it. She gave me a quote, but then she burst into tears. She was really upset that she should be accused of being politically active. But my goodness, she did make a change. Yeah, landmines are still there, but she did make a change. There was a treaty signed.
25 years is a long time. Do you think the impact that she's having or has had since her death is going to change now? I mean, you've got to bear in mind, half the people in our newsroom weren't even born when she died. I mean, it's, there's got to be a change happening, hasn't there?
Yeah, I think you make a fair point, actually. Much as I say, her light still shines so brightly, that is amongst a certain generation. It does astonish me sometimes that I talk to younger people and I say Diana, and I say, oh, Diana who? We never thought that would happen 25 years ago. After her death, I, for one, definitely thought that the world would change, humanity would change, we would all be much more humane, much more compassionate, that honestly, we would live her legacy. But that hasn't happened. My goodness me, we're as divided as ever as a community and as a world. But amongst certain people of a certain age and those who loved her very much, her star will still shine so brightly.
Where were you, Jenny, when you heard the news that she'd died?
I was here in Devon. Yes, I was here in Devon, conveniently 250 miles away from London. And I just told our little girl, who was 7 at the time, OK, you got your mum for 2 weeks now, because my life was forever being interrupted, mostly by Diana. And I said, I'm here now for 2 weeks. And in the middle of the night, I disappeared again.
Yeah. Gosh. Amazing times. Lovely to talk to you, Jenny. Your house looks gorgeous.
It does look very nice, actually.
And would you agree?
Must visit, Anne. Come down.
Yeah, I will. I so want to, especially looking at it now. Would you agree Devon is the best county in Britain, or is your heart somewhere else?
No, I was brought up in Hertfordshire, and that was lovely. But honestly, to sit here, the sea is just outside. There are yachts and things going by. I've got a beautiful garden. The ponies are on the hill. What more could you want?
Oh, I'm very jealous. It's lovely to talk to you.
You too.
Yeah.
Notice I didn't get an invite.
Oh, sorry.
Did you notice that?
No, but Jenny and I go back.
Do you?
Yeah, we go back.
Oh, well, Jenny Bond.
We did a long programme together on a canal boat together, and we
yes, I
shared.
remember
Yeah, we shared a canal boat, and you get to know somebody very quick. We went through all sorts of amazing experiences, and then at the end of the evening, we'd sit in the little kitchen in our canal boat because we had to stay overnight in the boat as well. It wasn't one of those things where you just do the filming during the day, and we'd have fish and chips or a pizza or something like that, and we'd sit and a drink, and we'd sit and talk. Talk. It was lovely.
Oh, that's very nice. That's very nice.
It was great.
I was just thinking about when I remember I worked for ITN at the time, and we had pagers. Do you remember pagers?
Yeah.
It's great big pagers. And the pager went off in about 3:30 in the morning, just saying Diana involved in an incident. You know, all staff head to the newsroom. Didn't know what it wasn't until later we found she died. But I mean, it was. I mean, you never forget.
No, you never forget. No, absolutely. It's funny, all of the people I interviewed, because I was on air that morning, all of the people I interviewed said, when they were rung up, because obviously all our researchers and people were ringing various people that she'd ever known, and they were often the first person to deliver the news because it happened at that time in the morning. And the thing that most people said is, "You're kidding!"
Yeah.
And then, of course, immediately correcting yourself, of course, nobody would kid about that. But everybody said that. That was the sort of first phrase they came out with.
It was just so totally on that.
And I was due to fly out to Florida that very same morning with my family for a holiday in Disneyland, Disney World. And I thought, because obviously we realised then it was going to be one of the most important news that you could possibly report on. And like Jenny, I thought, well, I'm going to have to work. And then I thought, no, what would Diana do for another day with her sons? Can't even say.
Is that what you did?
That's what I thought. I thought, no, I won't. So we went on holiday. And I just kept thinking that, what would Diana have done for another day with her sons? So I said, no, we're going. So we went anyway, and when we landed in Florida, every time anyone heard us speaking with a British accent, they just threw their arms around us. The world was just transmogrified by it. Amazing.
Oh, I'm glad you went away.
Yes.
Right thing to do.
I think it was the right thing to do, yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, look, we're going to take a short break. Plenty more to come, including the latest on the bank holiday getaway, which is not good news, I hate to tell you.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning to you. It's 9:35. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Now, with many people hoping to get away over the bank holiday weekend, there are, I'm afraid, fresh warnings of disruption for those travelling.
Yeah, there's that amber traffic warning that we heard from yesterday from the AA because of high levels of drivers on the roads. And if you're hoping to catch a last-minute flight for that quick getaway, think again, because very nearly 300,000 seats have been cut from bank holiday flight schedules over recent weeks.
Well, our London reporter is outside Heathrow Airport, which is normally the UK's busiest airport. Wonder if it is right now. Hi there, Alice. So what's the situation? I mean, that plane behind you hasn't moved, but it's a static one. But the traffic looks as though it's moving.
Yes, it is indeed. I've had a look at the departure boards and so far so good. There are no fresh cancellations today, but that's partly because there have been so many cancellations that have been done preemptively. The aviation company Cirium said that about 900 flights were cancelled over the bank holiday weekend from Friday all the way through to Tuesday. That's affecting airports across the country. And that's part of a wider picture really that we're seeing within the aviation industry. I mean, earlier this month, BA announced that it'd be cancelling short-haul flights, and that's partly because here at Heathrow they've actually got a cap on the number of passenger numbers. They're having no more than 100,000 passengers coming in each day, and that's a cap that's staying in place until October. Now, if you're watching this thinking, why on earth would you have a cap on passenger numbers in August when everyone's hoping to get away? It's because there is a shortage we're seeing of staff, particularly of baggage handlers, and that's caused some very chaotic scenes here at Heathrow. As you were saying, they're usually the UK's busiest airports. We saw some pretty awful footage and clips over the last couple of months of sort of baggage all being held together and people having last-minute flights and cancellations and delays. So I think very much the airlines and the airports are trying to stop that happening, and so they're reducing passenger numbers and hoping to make it a bit more manageable. I mean, I actually flew into Heathrow about 6 days ago, and while my flight was flying, it took a long time still for the baggage to come through. So I still think there are quite a few problems as the aviation industry is trying to get back on its feet after COVID, which of course is very frustrating both for airlines and for passengers. And I think a little bit of an indication there of how the airport's trying to reap a little bit of lost revenue. There's a study out by the RAC that are saying 2/3 of airports in the UK have hiked up their dropper fees. If you're hoping to perhaps take your missus to the airport and wave her off on a weekend away with the girls, you may be charged a little bit more than you were hoping for, which is obviously quite frustrating for a lot of passengers.
Stuff. Alice, thank you very much indeed. We've been talking about best places to go, and it's not the weekend to go and visit anywhere at the moment, is it? Because of all that traffic on the roads. Now, I don't know what's happening with the trains at the moment, but we want to know where you are and what you're doing and where the most lovely places are that you've been. And I want to start off with a very special Robin, because I know it's our producer, Robin, who has been to Southend-on-Sea. Took this. They went down on Wednesday. And took this.
Beautiful pictures.
Now, Southend-on-Sea does not always have the best rep.
But look at those
But
pictures.
it's absolutely beautiful. I love the Southend Pier, says our Robin. It's 1.25 miles long. You've got the railway running along it, and the view was incredible.
That is amazing. If you're listening in the car or on the radio or something like that, afraid you can't see it, but it's just one of those incredible... You'd want that blown up into a poster and put on your bedroom wall, wouldn't you?
It's very British, Southend-on-Sea. Just sort of very, very British, I think, in that sort of nice seaside way. I love it.
Dorothy in Derbyshire says, have you got no viewers north of the border? Yes, we do. Orkney, Shetland, Caithness, Ross and Cromarty, Ben Nevis. Fantastic views of the wild North Sea. Miles of empty landscapes. The North 500 is so popular now for visitors to travel up to. The people are wonderful and friendly. Well, I had to Google what the North 500 is. Do you know what the North 500 is? Well, the North Coast 500 is a 516-mile scenic route around the north coast of Scotland, starting and ending at Inverness Castle.
Oh.
Sounds good, doesn't it?
What's the name of this lady? Is it?
Dorothy in Derbyshire.
Dorothy. Thank you for that, Dorothy.
Yeah.
That sounds like a nice holiday, actually.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, fancy that. Phil in Norfolk says this is Dunwich or Dunwich in Suffolk. Now, look at that. That's got to be a time-lapse shot, I think, looking at the sky.
Yeah, it must be, mustn't it? There's starry night sky and that wonderful sky behind what looks like a ruin. Is that like a castle ruin?
Yeah, it looks like a castle ruin and what looks like a bit of a tail of the Milky Way in the background gathering that. It's an absolutely beautiful shot. I wonder what the exposure was on that. Must have been a few
Clever
minutes.
photographer. Yeah, thank you for that.
Very, very nice.
Another one from Paul, who says the best kept secret is North East and Northumberland coast. We like to keep it quiet, though, so don't tell anyone. And looking at that shot, it is stunning. And you don't want lots of people there, do you?
No,
Enjoy
nice
it
and
yourself.
quiet for the locals. Victor says, I'm sending you a view from my... Oh, here we go. View from his window. Grange over Sands in Cumbria, overlooking Morecambe Bay. I love Grange.
That is a view from your balcony or terrace, is it? That is stunning. You're so lucky.
Grange is a lovely place. It's really, really lovely. And it's where, I'm trying to think, was it Thelma from Coronation Street or Rita? One of them retired to Grange or somewhere like that.
I don't blame her. Even if she's fictional.
Well, fictional. Yes, fictionally retired.
But to have a property with a balcony that has that view, I mean, gosh, that's lucky. It's a blessing, isn't it? Absolutely. Andrea says, my husband and I spent our 25th wedding anniversary in Scotland in 2018. We spent time on Orkney. There you are. Those are the stones that I saw a couple of weeks ago too. Absolutely stunning place. Loved it there. He took this photo of the stones of Steness on Midsummer's Eve.
Isn't that lovely?
The Orkneys are full of these amazing ancient stones just standing there, and they go back much further than Stonehenge too.
Yeah.
Esther says, having grown up in Scotland with Loch Lomond and the Trossachs, spending my childhood holidays with grandparents in Essex, then bringing up my children in Gloucestershire for 25 years with the beautiful Cotswolds, and then 10 years in beautiful Leicestershire and Rutland, now 8 years in glorious Yorkshire. You've got about a bit, haven't you?
Yeah, you have, but at least you appreciate all of it, which is very, very nice, very lovely. Also, just very briefly, we were talking about A&E and all that sort of thing, and people getting in first and irritating you, which I totally get. Mel says, as a nurse for decades, triage is vital. Quite right. Immediate, most urgent, life-threatening cases go first, whether child or adult. It's battlefield practical. It's got to be the way of it.
It's got to be the way.
So thank you for getting in touch, Mel.
Well, here we've been joined by Aidan and Stephanie, and it's lovely to see you both.
Good morning.
I suppose better ask you, your favourite county?
Favourite county... I was in Broadstairs the other week, as you know. You mentioned the Ladybow Reservoir a couple of hours or so ago, didn't you? I've got a great story about that, because I used to go across there quite often, because it's between Manchester and Sheffield, past the area around the peaks, Tintwistle, where they filmed League of Gentlemen, the comedy about 20-odd years ago.
Yeah.
And it's the A57 Snake Pass. So if you want to go from Manchester to Sheffield or most other parts of Yorkshire, actually, you go through that, and it's a very scenic route. I went over there in 2011, and I was with my friend James, and he was from Sheffield. I was dropping him back after he had a biking injury, and this was one of the hottest days of the year, and he said, we had the windows down and everything, sunroof open. And he said, look over to the left-hand side, and we saw this mountain tops. There was snow on top of them. Couldn't believe it. Maybe you've seen that before, I don't know, but it's a microclimate.
In our business, when you read the weather and everything, the Snake Pass is always the first to get snow. Always, always, always. You can rely on it, usually any time of year. What about you, Stephanie?
Dorset. I went to the Jurassic Coast, I'd done some camping there for a weekend with some friends, and it was so lovely. Just that fresh country air, the sea, and they had all these nice little local pubs and bistros. I just loved it. I wish I could return.
Fossils?
No.
Because it's very famous for you to go there to the beaches and you can find fossils really easily.
I wish I went fossil hunting, actually. That's a good idea for next time.
But there's so much in this country, though.
Yes, there is.
Cheshire, I lived in Cheshire. It was fantastic just going...
You just sort of need to remind yourself, don't you?
I feel
People
bad.
always talk about holidays as getting away abroad, but actually there are places
And that's
to
what
see
I feel bad about, because I'm always hopping on a plane to somewhere else to get, my fix of wanderlust. But we've got all this in the country,
yes, we really
and
have.
it's much more
This is
interesting.
the thing, you're going to have to get out and about. Stephanie does the UK.
Steph travels the UK.
Cheshire was great, though. You'd go on a Sunday, go an hour in any direction, and you'd find an absolute treasure trove of... Get up to mischief and all kinds of stuff. There's a pub called the Three Fishes up in Lancashire I used to go to.
The Three Fishes?
Yeah, the best place I've ever been to in my life.
Now, I'll tell you what, yesterday, Steph, you were telling us about the return of the Gladiators.
I cannot wait. I'm so excited about this, actually. And it seems like, a lot of people have been talking about it on social media, the news shows. Everyone's just really excited about this show returning. Obviously, it's going to be on BBC One, and it's going to be a fresh set of superhumans who are going to be going up against these gladiators. And it's going to be a new generation, but everyone remembers all of the classic names.
Oh, well, they do. Like classic names like Wolf
Yes.
and Rhino.
Yes.
Here they are.
Yay.
How you doing, mate?
Oh, wow.
Hello,
It's great to see you both. Let's kick off, because I want to kick off with Wolf, because I think you've got the slightly dodgier line, but you are on the other side of the planet, so that's absolutely fine.
I'm in New Zealand. It's night time here.
Wow. And look, first and foremost, what's it like being a gladiator, and what's it like seeing a new generation coming through now?
It was absolutely a wonderful time in our lives. I can say this for me and all the guys. But with all due respect, they'll never be as good as us. Hey, Rhino. It's like they're a photocopy of the original.
I can believe it.
You were the originals. You were the classics, I guess. Isn't it amazing that you're so far apart, but you're there together on the screen and you're able to talk and laugh with each other? Did you know each other? Did you two know each other?
Where's Rhino at the moment? Is he in England or is he in America?
I'm back in London working for 6 weeks, so it feels really good to be back. I live in LA now.
Oh, you're back in London. Right.
And yeah, it feels good to be back in London. I'm working at Pinewood at the moment, so all is well.
So what are you up to, Rhino, these days?
I've been acting quite a lot live in Los Angeles. I've got my 2 kids, 3 kids in total. My 2 kids live with me in LA. And what's been happening? I'm doing promotion for a film called The Enforcer with Antonio Banderas and Kate Bosworth.
Nice.
That comes out September 23rd. And I'm working on a Marvel pick at the moment at Pinewood. So, yeah, it's been busy.
He hasn't aged.
No, it's interesting. Ask Stephanie here, say, no, they haven't aged,
You have not aged one bit.
I have to know, you have lost a bit of hair, Wolf.
Well, I'm 70 next month.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're 70, you look great.
I was the oldest glad. I did gladiators until I was 48.
Wow.
Mike, it's Aidan here. I used to live with your brother Jim in Bromley about 15 years ago. I hope you're tidier than he is.
Yeah. Unfortunately, in the last 12 months, I've lost my dad to COVID in England.
I know. I'm sorry to hear
and,
that.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and I lost my brother about 4 or 5 months ago as well, because, So it's, it's been quite a horrendous 12 months for me, losing 2 members of my family,
What are you doing out in New Zealand? I mean, is that where you live permanently now?
Yeah, I've been here for the last 17 years, 16 years. Yeah. I came on a holiday.
Yeah.
And I thought, what a beautiful place to bring up the children, and never went back. And it's a beautiful place. It's absolutely lovely.
To both of you, I don't know who's going to decide to talk first, but did becoming a gladiator utterly change your life?
Yeah, so I knew Mickey from bodybuilding way before gladiators, and we both used to be competitive bodybuilders. Every individual has their own adversity and hurdles that they've had to overcome. In a short shell, I was growing up with my mum, single parent background, hard upbringing, and gladiators really, really changed my life. And I'll forever be indebted to gladiators. And I consider myself very fortunate and lucky.
And Wolf?
It's very strange. All of a sudden, I was doing acting like Rhino beforehand when I was younger. And, a few people might notice you, and I was doing commercials and someone say, oh, I saw you on that commercial. But the recognition you get when you're doing gladiators and, at its peak, we were getting 13 million people watching. It's unbelievable. You just can't step outside into the street and everyone's, Wolf, Wolf, Wolf. Even now when I come back to England, the minute I get to the airport, all the customs people are like smiling at you and putting their thumbs up, and I'm walking through the airport and everyone wants to take a picture and shake your hand. And you're thinking, I've just arrived in England and the recognition's there even now after all these years. It's 30 years ago and people are watching repeats. You know, unbelievable.
I was just wondering if you. I mean, it's nice to be recognised. It's nice to have that sort of recognition for what you did and just how important you were to our sort of Saturday night viewing. But do you mind the fact that we're calling you Wolf and Rhino rather than what your actual name is?
No, Rhino was my nickname through competitive bodybuilding. So I'm the only gladiator in the world with my own nickname. Nigel Lithgow liked it and said, could we use that? So that's been my nickname since 1989. So yeah, it was way before Gladiators.
What about you, Wolf?
But even when we were Gladiators, we always referred to ourselves as Rhino, Saracen, Wolf. Wolf.
Yeah.
And we're just stuck to our Gladiator names. Because what happened in the very first series, before Rhino joined the cast, 5 of us were called Mike. Every time you said Mike, everybody went, huh? So, so in the end we said, look, let's just stick to our Gladiator names, and that's how it came about.
Guys, what would be your advice to the new generation of gladiators that are coming? Because, as with any sports people, when they're thrown into the limelight, there's also the controversy and there's also the downfalls. So what would be your advice for the new generation that are about to enter the show next year?
Ron Wolf, you go first.
Basically, take it seriously. You're not just out there. But we took it seriously. I can ask Ryan, again, you want to win, even though they're meant to. It's for them. It's for the contenders. But you still don't want to look bad. So train hard, take it seriously, rehearse the games. It's important that, because if you don't, what happens every year when I was a glad, new glads would come along sometimes and say, "Oh, you're number one, but I'm going to be number one." And I thought, "Oh, I heard that before."
Yeah.
And next year they're gone, and then someone else. Next year they're gone.
To lose the ego.
If you don't perform, when Rhino turned up and he performed, so he's going to stay. You have to perform. What do you think, Rhino?
Yeah, I would say your life's about to catapult into the fame aspect, and don't get ahead of yourself. Keep it real, as Wolf said, Mickey, and keep this. Remember what you're there for. So to perform, to take it serious, and don't get ahead of yourself, and just be real and be kind to all the fans, because they're the ones that got you there.
What about
sign
the best
autographs and take pictures of everyone?
Yeah, that's a very good point. What about the best game, you two? Because the one that always sticks in my mind, and I think probably sticks in most people's minds, are the giant earbuds. Yeah.
You go, Rhino.
So I was more into the power games. Never see a rhino really running around in the air. I was more on the ground. So and the battering games. So Whiplash, Suspension Bridge was good. I love Powerball and I love Gauntlet. That was my games. If I had to pick one game, it'd be Gauntlet, where the contender has to run through 5 gladiators, and they used to put me at the front to hold him up.
Love it. What about you, Wolf?
Yeah, I used to enjoy Hang Tough best, because
I remember him.
I could have a lot of fun on that. Once I got my legs wrapped around someone, they're not going anywhere. So if I just pull them down, it's clinical. There's no show, as far as I was concerned. So, I'd wet my finger and stick it in their ear, or I'd start pulling the hairs off their chest, or I'd rub my armpit into their face. Just do something funny, because they're not going anywhere. They're holding up like that. They can't stop you. And I just having fun, and and then when it was time to pull them down, I pulled them down after I've had a lot of fun, and then the audience will go home and they'll talk about that. They say, "Oh, did you see what he did? And he did that, and he did that," and they've got something to talk about. It's exciting, it's fun,
and it's about the entertainment, isn't it? It's an entertainment show as much as anything else. You've got to entertain the crowds.
The bits I used to like,
absolutely.
When someone would I don't know, lose to Wolf or whatever, or if they won by any chance, slither of a chance, Wolf would go, "You were lucky, you were lucky," and he'd get them and he'd hold them, and the crowd absolutely loved it. It was amazing. The kids absolutely loved it.
We feel really lucky to have you both on the programme right now. It's been fantastic, especially, given it the wonders of communication. Thank you so much for coming on. It's absolutely done us a power of good.
And you look really well.
Yeah, so do you.
By the way, let the powers that be. I'd love to be the presenter of the new series if they're interested.
Yeah.
Yay.
We will tell them.
Yes.
We will pass it on.
Yeah, they should definitely get
If
you
you could pass
involved.
it on, I'd love to. I think it would make it more of a show if, one of the old lads,
Yes,
if not me, one of the others would, being presenting on it, one of them, it'd be great.
Yeah. No, it's a very,
You'd
very
be great.
valid point.
I'd vote for you.
And thanks for the compliment about me, Rhino. What's going on? What's going on? Yeah, all right.
Get him out.
You win.
Thank you so much.
I tell you what, Wolf, you're in good nick for nearly 70.
If any of the fans want to follow what I'm doing, go onto my Instagram at Wolf Gladiator UK, and you'll see.
Okay.
I've still got abs, and I'm still in top shape.
Yeah, I'll bet you are.
Yeah, same thing. Anything at Mark Smith is all
Gentlemen, both, we've got to end it there because we literally are running out of time. But it's been brilliant talking to you.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Bye,
What
guys.
a thrill.
Isn't it funny, Steph, that you talk to these people and it's just like, wow.
I know, it's amazing, and it's incredible how down to earth they are.
Right, We've come right to the end of the programme. We haven't even got time for another word. We've got to go. That's it from us. Do stay tuned, though, because coming up next is the political correction today, isn't it?
Well, let's have a look at the weather for you, and it's going to be a cloudy morning for Scotland with some rain, brighter elsewhere with sunny breaks. Here are the details.
Well, starting off in the southwest, and whilst there will be some higher level cloud, keeping the sunshine a little hazy, it will be mostly bright and a warm day.
It's a similar picture further east and around the capital. There'll be some warm, sunny breaks in the cloud with highs in the mid-20s.
Then heading back westwards over to Wales, and here it will be mostly dry and often bright or sunny, with just a small chance of a shower.
In the Midlands, then, there'll be plenty of fine and bright weather.